You're listening to Character Crusade Unbound, episode number 3. I'm Stu.
And I'm Joe.
And Matt is not here.
And Matt is not here.
But we do miss him. He is here in spirit. All right, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Welcome, everybody, back to Character Crusade Unbound. This is the podcast where we try to unchain your roleplay, right? So we do that by throwing together some challenges, some cool things, some exercises, hopefully some homework that isn't too intrusive to help you think outside the box, and we all do this together as a community. We are glad to be back for episode number 3, and Joe, episode number 3 puts us almost halfway through our first season of Unbound. So that is a good segue into announcements. Now the question is, where will you be able to find said podcast? Well, we know for sure you'll be able to find it on our website. It's going to be on our website in a blog similar to how our other podcasts are laid out. So you'll always have access there. But you'll also be able to find it on iTunes. And we will also release a version of it on YouTube. We don't know exactly what the formula is going to be for the YouTube version, whether it will feature video or just straight audio. We don't know yet.
Yeah, once upon a time, it was just basically like cover art, like listening to an album.
Yeah, and we may still do that.
That may I don't know.
I don't know. We really just, we kind of went back through our experience with the original Character Crusade podcast, and what we determined is the best episodes we got was where we were really energized about the content and everything was fresh and new, but also when we were producing for audio only, which meant that when the three of us got together, we were all sitting around a table looking at each other, interacting together. We weren't spending so much time trying to interact with a camera and stuff like that, and I think it really helped the conversation. I think it came through in the presentation.
I agree.
So we're going to probably be getting back to a model more like that, which means we may have obviously a camera in the room for live streaming for those of you who want to come into the live streams with us, but there will be less focus on playing to the camera and more about having conversations with one another about the topic at hand.
Right.
So
you get to be kind of a little fly on the wall, if you will.
Yeah, you kind of get to sit in. So we'll leave you a place at the table, and you can check in with us every 2 weeks, and we'll do that live. So just to kind of go over the structure again, Season 1 is the plan is that Season 1 is going to be 8 episodes, and after Season 1 is done, we're going to create an entirely new, fresh challenge, and we're going to do a Season 2. We kind of are reserving judgment on the number of episodes. Originally, our thought was, 8 episodes seemed like about the right amount of time for our characters to experience everything from low level to some higher level gameplay. But we can always tweak that formula a little bit depending on our experiences with the first season. If we feel like it's too much time on a single theme, we can always bail and say it's going to be 6 episodes instead or whatever. But so it's still a little bit fluid here as we kind of figure out the formula. But I think generally speaking, the formula is going to work out really well. I love this idea of just putting together challenges and working on those challenges together as a community.
Well, too, it could also depend on the challenge itself.
Yeah, that could be.
But I think right now the target is 8, and we'll adjust it as needed.
Yeah, who knows what weird thing we'll come up with next. Could be anything.
Thing that Stu will come up with.
Whatever. Next. It's not all me. No. No.
No.
It could be. So, what else is in the news? Well, we talked a little bit about Character Crusade Unbound podcast, but many of you may have seen that today we officially launched the Pocket Legends Travel Size Fantasy podcast. If you want to get out there and check that out, that kind of launched with a bang today, a considerable bang for us anyway.
Yeah.
A pea shooter for large podcasters, but for us it was significant because we launched with 8 episodes in the can, and we've got at least another 9 or 10 episodes in reserve, and the plan is to publish a new episode every week. So that's the plan.
Yeah.
And that's going to be short stories, character vignettes, So far, the stuff that we've got up there ranges from everything from 4 minutes long to 34 minutes long. So,
Oh, is that the house?
uh-huh.
That one's the big one.
Yeah, House of Troubles is a big one. Written by Joe and recorded and produced by Matt, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, so you're going to get a little bit of everything up there. There's some Skyrim-focused stuff. There's some straight-up short story literature kind of focused stuff, some Fallout stuff. And then we plan on as we produce these things, we'll release more into the stream. And they're just little bite-sized pieces of fantasy designed to entertain and inspire. So if you are interested in supporting us in that effort, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. If you can't contribute on Patreon, you can certainly go out to iTunes, and ratings and reviews are huge on iTunes. So we highly, highly value those, because that is the iTunes archive is where the audience is. People who are into podcasts, that's where they go. And so that's where ratings and reviews matter, because Apple holds the keys to the kingdom when it comes to podcast popularity, who ends up in features. And the cool thing about launching a new podcast is we get a little bit of a grace period at the beginning where we, for about, I don't know, probably 6 to 8 weeks, will be on the new and noteworthy list in the literature section. It'll take us a little while to get there, but what we want to do is we want to climb the ranks. We want to get as close as we can to number 1 on the new and noteworthy. And my guess is that the literature category is going to be a very competitive one. So the best way for us to do that is just through support from our listeners. So if you're into it, if it's something you feel like you can do, that's great. Otherwise, help us find new fans. Go out on Reddit and
spread the word.
or spread the word to friends, people who you think might just like to listen to the stuff that we're producing while they're out doing other things, or if they just need a little creative shot in the arm for their gameplay or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to do.
If you think we need more subs, help us find them.
Yeah, exactly.
So cool.
All right. Joe, any channel updates?
Channel updates. The channel for me has been pretty quiet lately, as I've been, helping get the Pocket Legends out and kind of revising my role as the producer of the podcast here tonight. So that's been pretty quiet. I do have a couple episodes in the bank. I just have not done any of the audio work for it as of yet.
Oh, yeah.
The video's cut together, actually. It's all ready to go. I just need to sit down and
do all that audio.
Do it to it. So
okay.
I will pick up Sanak's story here as soon as I can. He will be soon going and fetching more of the Ethereum shards. So.
Ooh. Oh, you're hitting the big stuff now.
I am. Me, Sanak, whatever you want to define as we. In this particular
that ghost you're traveling with to get the shards, maybe.
Yes. I'll be picking up when I get them released in Rolpathar. So
okay,
that's the next point of interest.
How many have you gotten so far?
I just picked up the 3rd in Rolpathar. So
geez,
3 out of 4.
You're almost done.
Yeah, he collected 2 of them right away before he kind of let that go off to the side, and has now since picked up interest because now he has different interest in it. So
is it 4 plus the Ethereum Forge, or is the last one at the Ethereum Forge? Or do you have to collect all 4 to find?
You got to collect all 4.
Oh, that's right, because you got to put the completed piece in that device, right? And then it opens?
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't know. It's been so long since I've done it. I'm kind of rediscovering, so I haven't been to the Forge in ages.
Yeah, that's kind of a fun experience. So I like that whole thing.
That should be picking up. I can't say exactly when, but hopefully soon.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Let's see. Otherwise, mostly just kind of behind-the-scenes stuff here. So.
Yeah, I got to say, we have been busy as all hell lately. Just trying to prep for launching 2 new podcasts and all the infrastructure that goes on.
Oh, yeah, all the rebranding of the character.
Oh, God, all that crap. There was so much rebranding and so much building of infrastructure to get podcasts ready to go.
And we still have the website to clean up.
Yeah, we got a huge project left in the website. You're going to... over the next month or so, you're going to see lots of changes on the website as we simplify all of that business and cut it back so that what's there is really more of the essential stuff.
Yeah, I need to kind of
front and center.
Focus it a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. You'll also see the side effects of all of this busyness when we get into our Crusader Craft segments tonight. When you get into Character Craft,
yes.
you'll see the side effects of that as Joe and I struggled a little bit with our homework.
Busyness.
So, yeah, it was more difficult than I thought. But when I started going through the punch list of all the things that we had gotten done over the last 2 weeks, then I was surprised we got anything done at all.
It made a lot more sense.
Yeah. So the other thing you may have noticed is that classic episodes of the old podcast, Character Crusade podcast, are now indexing properly in iTunes.
You mean you can find them now?
Yeah, that means you can search for Skyrim, and last time I checked, we were in the top 6.
Yeah, yep.
And that is where we belong, given how much content we produced.
Yeah.
For a very long time, we had dropped off of search results completely.
Something happened, something got changed somewhere along the line, whatever it was, but we were able to go in and get that squared away. So
yeah, it was just a lot of elbow grease. We had to go in there and touch every episode to get them back up to snuff.
A lot of tedious.
Yeah, so it's been just lots of tedious work going on. So yeah, over the last week, you've seen new branding for Character Crusade. You've seen branding for Pocket Legends, branding for Draugr Logger, branding for Unbound. It's just been all kinds of logo work going on and stuff. I've been having a blast with it, but every time I'm sitting there working on on Illustrator files or whatever, I'm thinking about, God dang, man, when am I going to get my character to level 18? And that's the bare minimum. Like,
I know.
Am I going to make it? I don't know. So yeah, it was kind of crazy. But as far as CouchWarrior TV, my channel update's pretty quick. Basically all the Twist episodes are now public. So everybody should be completely caught up and should have had the transition experience from Twist to Barbarian. And now I am focused on the Barbarian storyline. Given everything else that's going on, my goal is to produce 1 episode a week. That may be pushing it. I don't know. The one that I put out today just barely got done. So, doing my best to kind of keep up with the workload, but we're getting it done.
Oh, yeah.
One way or another, we'll chip away at it. So the story will continue, but now I am free to kind of focus on just the one story for now. So that is the goal.
Right on.
Yeah. Anything else?
Not that I can think of.
All right. Well, with that, I think it's time to get to our first segment, Character Craft. Welcome to Character Craft, everyone. This is the segment of the show where Joe and I talk a little bit about our character leveling experiences, or not leveling, over the last 2 weeks. So now let's do a quick recap. After the last episode, Joe, what were our level goals?
If I remember correctly, they were minimum 18 and a goal of between 20 and 22. Does that sound right?
20 to 22, bare minimum 18, I think.
22 to 24.
No.
Oh, no, it wouldn't have been 24.
No.
That's way too much.
It was 20 to 22.
Yeah, that's so.
I'm sure of that.
Okay, so that was,
Okay. Yeah, relatively sure. So, okay. Well, Joe, how did it go?
Went really poorly.
Okay. Elaborate. Elaborate, if you will.
Oh, I got very little game time in
right
over the last couple weeks. So I just left off at around level 13.
Oh.
So horrible failure on my part.
Yeah.
But a couple reasons for that. One, my game's been crashing a lot on me, which has been frustrating me. So, if it crashes a couple times, I just kind of hang it up, walk away, and then come back. So,
or sometimes not come back,
or just sometimes not. But that's. Yeah. I believe that's indicative of the hardware I'm running. It's not necessarily my game loadout so much, and that it is. I've just got so much in my loadout.
Right.
So because of the inconsistencies on when it's going down, and it just kind of can happen whenever and wherever, that's why I don't believe it's anything in particular rather than a bunch of things adding up.
That's the worst.
So, I mean, I've got cutting room floor, which adds a lot of stuff. I think that might be one of the bigger culprits, but I really like the content, so I'm not going to drop it. I'm keeping cutting room floor. So I'll just have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's kind of a very low excuse. It's just otherwise it's been, as alluded to earlier, background work being done to kind of rebrand and get the podcast to index properly and just all of that stuff. Getting the new one.
To be fair,
out.
You actually had a crap ton of work to do for that first episode, which we recorded not paying attention to the fact that it was going to be a podcast, which made it an editing nightmare.
So some of the transitions were a little tricky.
That was bad.
Our sound volumes were a little off, so I had a lot of manual work to kind of bring it all down into a more normalized state.
Yeah.
Hopefully, moving forward, that won't be as much of an issue. There's always going to be some of that, but
yeah.
So between that and my own woes, and then just life in general, personal life, family life, that kind of stuff. So I did not get the playtime that I would have otherwise liked.
Yeah.
So, but in the meantime,
understandable.
We left off at the Winking Skeever.
Okay.
I did a performance there as a bard.
Okay. Flute?
A
flautist?
A whistle.
Oh, a whistle?
Well, flute.
Oh, I was thinking like full-on Jethro Tull.
No, not quite. No. We'll bill it as a B-flat whistle. How's that?
Okay, sure. Okay. Is that a slide whistle?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be here all night.
Thank you, Solitude. That'd be awesome. Hey, yes, the fact is that I could totally see him in tight leather pants. That'd be so amazing.
So, no, he did his first performance using Become a Bard at the Winking Skeever. The character, this is really his first kind of formal audience type of performance, and I think he's kind of likes that kind of crowd rush.
Sure.
So
likes the attention.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of something I'll try to keep in the background as he plays and as I play the character, that he's kind of liking the entertaining aspect.
All right. Cool.
So there's that. From there, where did he go next? He left Solitude. I did a lot of dicking around in Solitude. For a character that I was never going to bring to Solitude, it's the only damn city I've been spending time in. I mean, seriously, I don't think I've been to any other ones.
It's the big city.
It is the big city. So.
He's an urban slide whistle professional guy.
We're going to have to get away.
Okay, no more slide whistle.
No slide whistle. Come on, this is serious.
Sorry.
All right, so let's see. So yeah, he picked up. Oh God, he's got an army of followers now. So he picked up Skjarn on his way in, I think, from the Four Shields in Dragon's Bridge, and then he picked up. Well, let's see. What do I got here? He picked up.
By the way.
Yeah.
Demorg 114 says excuses. Do you want me to kick that person?
I'll just put him in a timeout.
Okay. All right.
Who did he recruit? He recruited several others. Well, there was one in the Winking Skeever. Oh, Belrand.
Who's that?
He's kind of a spell sword sort of dude.
Is that a vanilla character, or is that from a mod?
I want to say he's vanilla, but I don't honestly know. Again, I've had interesting NPCs.
It's hard to tell.
As just kind of a standard part of my load for so long.
Yeah.
I don't even know who's vanilla and who's not anymore.
Right.
I mean, some are obvious because the voice work is obvious, but for the most part, I don't even know. So he picked up Belrand and the Winking Skeever. And then I recruited using EFF. I recruited Darcy from the Bard's College. Again, I'm not sure if that's a vanilla or an NPC, interesting NPC. So I've got those 3.
So what was your thought process behind recruiting all these people? Like, what is it that Van is after?
Well, Van has always been kind of the smaller guy.
Okay.
So he's always surrounded himself with an entourage of people to help protect him.
Right.
So that's kind of his primary goal. So he's kind of out by himself now. He doesn't have have his ship to fall back on. He doesn't have the crew. When he was growing up, all the people he used to hang out with, one by one, became got themselves arrested. So so now he's trying to recruit a new posse, if you will.
Sure. And what musician of consequence wouldn't have an entourage? Right.
And Darcy was part of the Bard's College, so we've got a bard. He was good with spoken word, poetry, that kind of thing. So, He's
getting the band back together. What you need is, if you're not using it already, it would be a blast to use the Dragon Killer cart and have it be like your tour bus.
The band.
Yeah. Everybody's in the back of the cart doing blow and oh, it's just getting out of hand.
I should have named him Elwood.
There you go. Yeah.
But he's got one more actually, and I can't remember who that was. He's got like 4 followers.
Oh, okay.
Well, he's got 3 now because Darcy bid it, but
really?
Yeah, Darcy took one for the team.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't know what was going on, but for some reason, Darcy's hit points weren't regenerating.
Really?
And he just got to a point where he ran out. So,
whoops.
He got taken down. Was it? I think it was by a saber cat.
Must have been the drummer. It's always the drummer.
It's spontaneously combusted.
Okay.
So that's kind of where he's at now. He did make his way into the inn that's by the pass. You know that one?
Yes.
Going towards
Nightgate.
Thank you. See, he knew. All I had to do was, and
that place by the tree.
That place.
Oh yeah.
By where it's cold.
Yep.
It's got all the snow in the mountains.
Hey, I figured out that Matt was in Karthwasten from a snapshot on his phone that included mostly sky. So I've been playing this game too much.
All right, fair.
Too much.
Fair enough. That is just the right amount of fair.
Okay, enough.
It's just enough.
Thank you.
He is there. He played a gig there.
Okay, at the Nightgate.
At the Nightgate. Yep.
It's a tough crowd there.
It's tough. Yeah. It's a tough, it's a tough place, but they enjoy it because not too many people come out there.
That's right. That's right.
So they're appreciative.
They're great fans. Great fans.
So yeah, and that's Darcy bid it after that, but
all right.
So then I made my way because I had to bring this case of meat or some bullshit from Stone Hills from the guy that I talked to like right away.
Really?
I had to make this delivery, and I just got about around to it now. So.
Oh man!
So I made my delivery up to Winterhold.
All right.
It was in Winterhold, not the town, but in that general area that Darcy bid it. So,
oh man,
we grabbed his stuff and
poor Darcy.
It's too bad. But that's another thing with Van is he doesn't let himself get attached.
Right. He travels with a lot of people, but
they all have their.
He's not buds with any of them, really.
Not deeply, no.
Oh, okay.
So
all right.
So I did that, and now, where did I leave off? Where did I crash last?
Well, you went to Winterhold, but
I went to Winterhold, I delivered that, and then I left right away because I decided that it was best to get Jari Ra out of my hair.
Oh.
I was going to try to avoid Jari Ra because I didn't want to go down the docks and all that good stuff. But I figured that it was best, knowing that I'm a piratey sort of dude and he's got marauders on his side, so they probably have some vague knowledge of one another. So I took my posse out to Jari Ra's sister's boat and
Look, you
destroyed
even
them.
call them a posse now.
Oh my God, these dudes, they just annihilate everyone.
God.
I can't get, well, that's the other part. I can't get any time into getting experience because my followers take it all.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I
They're
mean,
just-
how
just
far does
destroying everyone.
follower synergy go? I mean,
I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So that's what we're in the midst of right now.
Okay.
We just took out his sister, and now we're on our way back. So,
God. See, now that
I mean, I felt like I did a lot of stuff, but I didn't get a lot of experience for it.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it sounds like you kind of
So-
did a crap ton of stuff.
At some point, I'm going to have to probably drop these followers
For a while.
somewhere for a little while. What I
Yeah.
need is to find a place that I can kind of establish as my own,
Right.
and then I can let them be there.
Yeah.
But I will say it is kind of nice having people just kind of all rush and.
More of a permanent place to do
and
your
I
gigs.
I was finally able to build a crossbow.
Oh, you were?
I finally got the option to craft a crossbow, so I've done that.
All right, cool. Like just a steel crossbow?
It's
or-
just a steel crossbow,
All
nothing
right.
special.
Awesome. That's good.
So
All right. Did you use the faction crossbows?
I do have it installed, but I don't think that's part of it.
So where did the recipe come from to make it? How do you learn
It
how to
was
make
just
just
in
in the menu?
the forge, unless maybe I didn't have enough in smithing at one point. I
Well,
might
that
have-
could be.
Yeah, I bet that was because I didn't. I just finally sunk a point into smithing, so
Oh, so it probably
just wasn't available.
popped up on the available things to build now.
Right.
All right. Well, so he's on his way back to Solitude with the posse. Is that the plan?
Yes, that's the plan. I got to go confront. No, Broken Ore.
Oh, Broken Ore. Okay, so the sister ends up sending you directly to Broken Ore.
Let's see.
There's no stop off in between anywhere,
no.
right?
I'm getting everything all mixed up. Have I been to Broken Ore?
No, you don't go to Broken Ore until after you get the sister.
Okay. Yes, because that's where Jari Ra is.
Yes,
So that's where I'm heading.
because okay, so you're going to take your posse there. Oh, that's going to be a nice fight.
That'll be tough.
That'll be fun, though.
Yeah.
I love Broken Ore Grotto. It's like one of my favorite places just to go kill stuff.
Did I already go through that? I might have already gone through that.
With this character?
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't remember it from your first.
I've been doing so damn much different stuff lately.
Uh-huh. Do you have a backup character that you play when you're not playing Van, just to play? Or what do you do?
I do. I haven't used it for a while. But the only reason I remember that is because I remember all my followers ganging up on like everybody that got even close to us.
Oh.
So that was actually kind of fun. And then we just looted the hell out of it. Because that's what you do.
And magically, Van somehow always ends up being the treasurer.
Well, it's nice to have the followers to be able to stash stuff on, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Scarin, he's got some broad shoulders. He can carry a lot.
That's good. That's good.
Just got to stroke his ego a little bit, and he's happy to do it.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's what Van does, right?
yeah, that's
I mean,
that's his
he's
deal.
a talker.
He is a talker, so I'm definitely going to be going
Mhm.
up the speech tree
All right.
as quick as I can. So
That's cool. There's some cool stuff in the speech tree.
yeah. So I want to
worth
get to
exploring.
the merchant and the bribery and all that stuff.
Right.
So using
Makes
Ordinator,
sense.
of course. So
Of course.
of course,
What else is there? I mean, there's other stuff, but
there's actually quite a bit. Out
what is there that doesn't require patching?
Oh, there's Ordinator,
Correct.
and then there's
And
not
then there's
Ordinator.
and there's the not ordinator. Yeah.
The vanilla that doesn't need
Yeah.
patching.
Not in that way.
No.
So, yeah, I boy, am I glad the days of like rendering patches for 2 hours at a stretch are done.
That Perkus one could take some time.
Oh, it was awful. It was awful.
It's a good overhaul. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, the patching on it can.
Oh, just arduous though. Yeah, and then
Can be.
you want to change one thing in your load
And you
order,
gotta repatch it.
add a just single mod, and you can never just be sure whether or not it requires patching or not. So you just run it, and it'd be like forever.
Right.
Yeah, there were a lot of things about it that I liked, but when Ordinator came along, man, I was all in because tired of the patching.
Yeah.
So,
As far as difficulty, I don't recall. I think it's just the default difficulty that I'm playing on.
okay,
I probably could bump that up,
okay,
but I don't like to die. I don't find that very fun. So
Really?
yeah. So you know, I generally play fairly moderate level of difficulty because honestly I'm just not that good of a player.
Well,
I'll put it right out there. I die a lot if I.
Was the genesis of your screen name, right?
Well, yeah, it's part of it. Yeah,
the panicked monkeys.
Panic.
Oh my God! Here they come! Oh my God!
I'm running the wall. I'm walking the wall. Oh my God! Oh my God!
I'm stuck in the geometry. Oh my God! I'm stuck in the.
That's about it, and then you die.
Yeah, exactly. I get it.
But no, I probably could. I probably could with so many followers, especially.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell you, there was some choice, rather loud swearing and cussing going on in this room last night, as I was getting footage for Ivorstad's story, because frickin' Volf kept killing me with his shouts. He kept killing me with his shouts, and I'm like, and I would, like, again, like.
I did see that in your video. That was pretty funny.
Oh, God.
Making reference to it.
Oh, we got.
And it's like the fire shout or something, too, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. He's got more than one shout.
Yeah, I know that, but he seems to prefer that one.
Yes, and he would do it in these narrow corridors where everyone's in single file, and he's bringing up the rear, and it's like, just crazy.
It'd be one thing if he was in the lead.
Yeah. And I don't get it. I mean, if it's a glancing blow from a shout, I don't seem to take any damage at all. But there were several times when if he hit me full on, I would just die, and it was like there would be no health bar. I would just drop dead. So I don't know if it's a combination of some kind of a conflict between his particular shout and, I don't know, maybe something like the combat overhaul. The Wildcat combat overhaul.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you're doing that.
Yeah. So anyways, it was really frustrating. I finally used AFT, and I assigned him a combat style.
Oh.
And then he stopped shouting completely.
Well, you don't want him to do that either.
I don't want him to do that either, but I sure as F don't want to die every time we go into a barrow because the friendly fire issue was really frustrating, and it took me like 3 times as long to get the footage I needed because I was trying to deal with that problem, but that's what Skyrim is.
Is that something you can turn off somewhere?
No. I mean, I've looked through his settings. Unless I'm prepared to go in and modify his files in CK, I don't think I can do it.
Oh, that's on an NPC level?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought maybe it was something you could toggle in Wildcat or something.
No, yeah, his shouting is specifically given to him by the mod author.
Well, yeah, that I knew. I just wonder. I was thinking maybe there was a friendly fire setting that could be toggled.
I'm not aware of one. Yeah, it gets a little bit dicey too because, characters like Hoth and Volf are so heavily customized that sometimes follower mods do not work on them. Period.
Oh, to control them.
To control them.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's really...
Right.
I tried to control them through EFF and discovered I just couldn't do it, so I had to switch to amazing follower tweaks, and even then, I can still give them all group commands now, but there are some ways in which Volfar's menus are subtly different than everyone else's and all this kind of stuff. Like,
gotcha.
It's not like the type of complete control you'd have if you just picked an NPC on the street and then used AFT. It's very different. So,
well, how about your character,
Raiden? So, yeah. After episode 2, I had advanced my character up to level 12, so I got all the way to the max. And then I picked him up this time. The first week of our 2-week interval, I didn't have a chance to play at all. So I actually, my first, what are you looking for?
Keep going.
Okay. My first play session with him was last Friday, and I managed to get him up to level 19. I'm about halfway between 19 and 20, I want to say. And like you, I feel like a lot of stuff happened. A lot of stuff took place, but we are at that point where, it just takes longer to go up levels. He's got a follower now. So when we left off last time, he had gone to Falkreath. He had met his father. He had retrieved something of value for his father, who was in Falkreath, and then made his way back to Whiterun. So when I picked the story up again, he had arrived back in Whiterun. And there are some things that are taking place in his story that directly relate to what our homework assignment is going to be for tonight. And I had enlisted the help of 57 Strudel and apparently her entire family to help me with this homework. So I'll kind of fill you in on what's going on here, but we'll talk about it in more detail later. Basically, what I did is I sent Strudel a message on Discord and said, hey, I need you to present me with a bit of information that I'm going to plug into my story. And I basically laid out the scenario. I said he's gone to Falkreath, he's met his father, he's arrived back in Whiterun, and he goes to the House of the Dead, and he kneels before the Shrine of Arkay, and he has a vision. And I just said, what's that vision? Tell me in a sentence or two, what is that vision that he has? And she provided me with the vision. Just they kind of figured out some options for me, and they said, we sat down as a family and we came up with these 4 options. You know, they're like really into it. And I was like, awesome, right? And so I picked something off the list and I built it into my story. And essentially, the vision that he had was a vision of a big tree on the top of a hill, and there was an ethereal heart floating in the sky above the tree. And I thought, okay, how do I interpret that? What does that mean? Of course, he prays, and he walks out of the House of the Dead in Whiterun. You take a hard left, and what do you see? You see the big Gildergreen tree right in the center of town, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And he'd already had some interactions with Danica Pure Spring regarding the tree. He'd already agreed to go and retrieve Nettlebane. So I thought, okay, we're going to take this vision as though it were a sign from someone, RK, presumably, because that's who he was praying to. And that, you know, how would he interpret that, right? Well, he would interpret that as, for starters, the basic thing is, let's follow through with this thing we agree to do. So at that point, I did a solo mission out to Orphan Rock. I retrieved Nettlebane. I came back and I talked to her. And of course, she said, now I need you to go and get the sap because I'm too scared to do it. And I was like, all right, fine. And so I retrod ground that I had been over before, hit the road, headed back towards Eastmarch, back to the scene of the crime, the place where he had originally come into Skyrim, where the adventure had started. And on the way there, I stopped at the barrow where Goldear was.
For a quick refreshment?
Yes, at the Lost Barrow Brewery. It's right,
their new tap room.
Right along the way. Beautiful tap room. Live music all the time. They got this slide whistler guy. It's great. So I stopped in there and visited Goldear, right? And then set up a camp there for the night. And it was kind of like my way of checking back in with Goldear, who was the guy that he helped out in the first episode, or the second episode, where he helped him retake his family barrow from a necromancer. And so he goes there, and Goldear is still there. They kind of have a conversation, and he starts thinking, okay, maybe this kid, maybe there is something about this guy, right? Maybe he is worthy. He's still here looking after his family. A week later, he's tending to business here, cleaning the place up. Maybe this guy is worthy of being a travel companion. Not only that, but maybe he's worthy of carrying this sword that I'm carrying around with me called Destiny. So kind of said my goodbyes, headed to Eastmarch, went to the tree, got the sap, fought the Spriggans, managed to stay alive.
Well done.
Yeah, which is not easy sometimes, especially solo. And then headed back to Whiterun. Now, to turn in the quest, I'm headed right straight back to Whiterun, so I'm going along the same road again, right past the barrow, so that the second time there, I stopped and talked to him and said, okay, I invited him to be a follower. I gifted him the sword, and he accompanied me to Whiterun. And then once we got to Whiterun, I got him geared up.
Cool.
I had some extra dough, so we put together some travel gear for him with some money I had and some things we found along the way, and I kind of outfitted him in a similar fashion to how Raiden is outfitted with light armor and sword, but he's a sword and shield guy. So it was kind of interesting. I started thinking about, you got these two young men who are pretty ambitious and pretty energetic, and they have these things that they want to try and accomplish, and they both have a very strong reason to try to make a difference in the world that has to do with combating the undead menace. So I thought, to me it seems like these guys could be really good friends given some time to work together.
Cool.
And so, yeah, it was really kind of fun, right? We spent some time there building gear, and once we got outfitted, I just kind of sat down with them at the tavern and imagined them having this conversation about, okay, what's our next move? Like, what are we going to do next? And it was, right there in the tavern that people were talking about, of course, what's going on with the Dawn Guard.
Oh, yeah.
And this is something that he'd heard about before. So that's what they did.
They're vampire hunters or something, aren't they?
Yeah, in the old fort near Riften.
Okay.
Uh-huh. You've heard.
I've heard.
Yeah.
I've heard.
Yeah. You've heard their radio ads, I'm sure.
Yeah, they got pretty big marketing campaign.
Pretty prolific.
So that does remind me, one thing I did forget to mention. So guess whose hands touched something they shouldn't have.
Yours?
Yeah.
So did mine.
I was going through and just, grabbing everything. And I hit the button just as I noticed what one of them was.
Uh-huh.
And there it was. A new hand has touched the... Damn. But, from a character point of view, he would have taken it anyway because it's a big-ass gem.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, what's that?
Yeah. It's not every day you find a 20-sided die this big.
I know, especially, get the kind of pearlescent kind of look.
I know. Yeah, that's what I failed to mention is when I went to Orphan Rock to get Nettlebane, it was in a chest in Orphan Rock. And, of course, I grabbed it.
Yeah.
This is the first character I've had for a long time where I actually felt compelled to. I felt like it was a good choice,
Oh, yeah.
Usually,
for you, for sure.
I avoid it like malware, but... But, yeah, I grabbed it.
It's such a phishing scheme.
Oh, yeah, it is. So basically, they decided it was Dawn Guard time. And of course, that takes you to Riften, which is right down that same damn road I've been traveling the whole time, down into the valley, right? So we...
It's a pretty valley.
What we did is we rested up, we geared up, we got all the stuff we needed, all of our supplies, and we traveled with intent, Joe.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, another thing that's been chewing me up is just I've been doing a lot of camping.
Oh, God. Yeah, that takes forever.
Skinning animals. And,
uh-huh.
You get yourself a couple saber cats. Well, there's the whole afternoon. Yeah. Don't even think of a mammoth. That'll take days.
Lost weekend?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I get you. I know. I actually got to the point where I just stopped skinning all these animals. I'm like, I can't fucking do it another time because it just the thing that bothers me the most about it is I love the idea of having the pelts and the materials that I can use.
Right.
But the idea that, I like the realism of it.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea that it yields all these things, but everything has its place. Right. And when your goal is to do something in particular and you're traveling to that location and you are well equipped and outfitted, you don't need to stop and skin every squirrel along the way.
No.
You don't.
No, and that was to your point I was going to say, because I agree that I think kind of moving forward, it's going to be more selective.
Yeah.
I'll still loot. I'll just do it manually.
Yeah.
Although I will say it did come in handy because I had collected the right enough bone materials from some of my kills to actually make my own flute. So, and then I accidentally burnt one. I used it as kindling.
Whoops.
But fortunately,
a bone one?
Yeah.
Can you use a bone flute as kindling?
It says it must just register as flute. So at that point, but yeah, I accidentally burned it up.
It just registers as garbage.
So fortunately, my pack mule Skarn I had the right bones for me to make a new one quick.
All right, cool.
So I was able to whittle one out real fast.
Yeah.
That's just after I already told the barkeep I was gonna play for him.
Oh yeah, okay.
And then I'm like,
and then you're like, oh shit,
shit,
I burned my flute.
Skarn, get over here, quick! Whittle.
He used it as a crack pipe and it went up. Yeah, I mean, headed out to Riften, right? And so I've continued on this path of rolling the 10-sided dice when I pass places where I feel like there could be dark intent. So once we got to Ivorstad, I decided to mix it up a little bit. We went up into Ivorstad, got off the road, took some trails and stuff, got up into Ivorstad, and as soon as we got around Shrouded Hearth Barrow, he's like, oh, it's a barrow. And Raiden, being who he is, he went in to just kind of look around, not go inside, but kind of just go in the open area there to kind of look around. I had him roll, and he failed the roll. I gave him a 10% chance, and then it goes up by 10% every time he encounters the location.
Right.
He failed the roll, but at that point it was dusk, and so they end up going back to the inn to stay the night, and the innkeeper kind of drags you right into it. I mean, as soon as he says ghost, right?
Oh, yeah.
At that point, Raiden's all over it. He's like, what?
Huh?
Go? So it doesn't take long before they're on the track of that whole thing. And so we cleared out Shrouded Hearth Barrow on the way to Dayspring Canyon. So we go to Dayspring, we meet up, go to Fort Dawnguard there and meet up with that whole crew, get an assignment, grab as much stuff as we can. I set up Goldir with a crossbow and a whole bunch of bolts, so he's going to be crossbow guy.
Cool.
I haven't been investing at all in archery or range stuff of any kind.
I've done some archery. That's going to be one of his things. He's going to be more of a support. Well, especially if I have this many followers with me, I'm going to be more support. So,
yeah, that would make sense.
So archery, and especially if he's going to, speech, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably going to go enchanting and alchemy too.
Cool.
Alchemy more for poisons and stuff.
Sure.
And some buffing.
I can totally see that.
Let's see what else. Oh, I mean, I was also going to mention that Demorg, we'll talk about Van's bone flute as much as we need to.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to whip it out there and talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, if you got to blow your bone flute, you blow it. I mean,
how else do you know what kind of sounds it's going to make?
Exactly. Simple as that.
It really is.
Yeah. This isn't rocket surgery. Okay.
Where were we?
You were going down kind of your focus as far as skills go.
Oh, yeah. Mostly just two-handed with dual wielding, archery for support.
One-handed weapons, dual wield.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying. Okay.
Two hands, not two-handed.
Two claymores.
So it's going to be kind of a Darth Maul kind of thing.
Okay.
I'm going to put two claymores together.
Yeah, there you go.
And wield them.
Makes a lot of sense. I like it.
Nope. Two-handed, dual wielding.
Okay.
No block, really. Archery for crossbow. Alchemy. Some enchanting just to make better gear.
Makes sense.
So.
Yeah, I have stayed away from range weapons, and I've been thinking about that. I mean, my original goal with Raiden was to focus on two-handed weapons, specifically the sword. That to me that seemed like, okay, if you've got a culture that de-emphasizes the use of magic, more than likely, to me it just made more sense that a swordsman would be focused on using both hands on the weapon. Then, if there's literally no chance in hell, culturally speaking, that you're going to be something more like a spell sword, then you're fully committed to the weapon. So two-handed and light armor and blocking. And then what has worked out really well for me is because I restored the Gildergreen, right? I get access to Danica as a trainer who
nice.
I've been training a lot with in restoration. So,
good.
restoration.
Makes sense.
There's also a trainer for restoration in Fort Dawnguard eventually.
Yeah, I've got nothing in magic, and I have no intent.
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing, and what I love about Ordinator is I haven't been investing a lot of points into Magicka because my plan is to use mostly the passive perks that are available to me in the restoration tree, so that I can use some of the perks like Warrior's Flame and all this kind of stuff, where you've got these passive skills that affect your enemies and your followers during combat. And to me, that seemed like more in fitting with who he was, like an innate ability that he would have. That would be so you'd have all these things kind of going on at the same time he was wielding his weapon with both hands.
Right.
So I'm excited about that because that's going to have a big impact later on down the line at higher levels when fighting undead. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. So even without directly using a lot of restoration spells, he's going to be able to do a lot of interesting damage on the battlefield, especially against those kinds of foes. So I'm excited about that. And, it was Fort Dawnguard and then off to Dim Hollow Crypt. The interesting thing is that at that point, I already had a bounty that I was carrying around with me that I'd gotten off the notice board to go and kill undead in Dim Hollow Crypt. So at that point, he was already aware of the location. So traveled to Dim Hollow Crypt, got there, of course, by way of the road to Whiterun. He's going back that way again. Stopped in Whiterun, got some more training from Danica, then up to Dim Hollow Crypt. We did our business there and kind of gathered up Serana. That was an interesting experience because I was thinking a lot about how he would react to her. And a lot of that, the role play around that situation played into my circles of character conflict, which was the homework from the last episode, right? And so I've been thinking a lot about that, and I see Raiden I don't see him as being your typical undead hunter. I don't think that he would be a good fit for an organization like the Vigilance because he is not a rabid, kill all undead, right? Like, his goal, yes, he's built to kill undead, but he's not a crusader. So, to me, when she comes out of that crypt and she's asking you normal questions and seems interested in having a conversation, that was something that he responded to.
Okay.
And then I started thinking about, well, if Goldir is going to be a kind of a long-term companion, what is Goldir's reaction to Serana? And what I decided to do with Goldir is kind of go in an extreme direction that you wouldn't expect, which is that not only is Goldir okay with her traveling with them, but Goldir becomes kind of obsessed with her. He becomes interested in her as a woman, right? Like as someone he could be with. Like he's kind of little infatuated with her, right?
All right.
And so to me, the interesting thing I'm trying to play up is the fact that Goldir is kind of is very a hot-tempered, passionate Nord type, and Raiden is the opposite. He is dispassionate, logical, calculating, measured kind of person, and that's because of his upbringing. So that helped me kind of flesh out the circles because his upbringing, I think, when I'm trying to think about what Raiden struggles with as a person, it was a little bit of a challenge. I've got my circles here. Let's see. So what he struggles with is social situations and feelings of belonging. So he's lived a life where basically the only person he interacted with primarily was his mother and whoever was brought in for training purposes and stuff like that. He's had kind of an isolated existence, and now his mother is dead. He's out in the world trying to figure out what his purpose is, and he's in a situation where he's forced to interact with people in order to figure out what his life mission is. but he's not particularly good at it. So the challenge will be figuring out how to play that out in the role play. And some of that I'll manufacture myself, and some of it I might do through game rules that I set for myself.
Cool.
But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take things in a direction that's not what I would consider to be cliche. Because the game wants to steer you in this direction where you're constantly questioning whether or not you should travel with Serana. And they do it all the time by, playing you off of the Dawn Guard, and then off of her, and then off of the vampires, and you constantly feel like you're in this ping pong match over, whether or not it's morally okay for you to be traveling with a vampire and doing these things, right? I decided, well, let's take it the other direction where, Raiden's kind of dispassionate about it, and he's saying she's not a threat. She doesn't need to be eliminated. The fact that he is not a crusader means that, his killing of undead is something that he does because he's good at it, not something he does because he's on a personal crusade. And then mixing it up a little bit by having Goldir not be that way, but to take it a little bit further and to say Goldir is going to get to a point where he's basically going to flat out fall in love with her. Okay? And then Raiden's going to have to figure out, how do I deal with this? Because Raiden is not great with emotions. He comes off as aloof when in fact what he feels is awkward. Right? So I'm kind of working that out. What I found is that the center of the circle where Raiden is concerned is way more interesting than what's going on in the outside part of the circle. With other characters, it's been the opposite for me to some degree. Like with Robard, the outer edges of the circle sometimes are the most interesting because he's always in conflict with society. Always, in everything he does. So with Raiden, I sort of see him as being mostly about internal conflict. He understands the difference between right and wrong.
Right.
He understands what laws are and that he should obey them. He's generally a law-abiding citizen, but nothing has happened in his story yet that will test that. And eventually something will happen that will test that, and then we'll see what happens. I'll react to it as it comes and do whatever I think is true to the character. But basically, gathered up Serana, and as far as Raiden's concerned, she proved her worth. She helped them kill the bandits in Fort Dunstead who attacked them when they were trying to travel west. They went to the Hall of the Vigilance, found it burning. She expressed remorse and wouldn't go inside because she's a vampire. She refused to go inside the building, but she expressed remorse over what happened. That was another sign for Raiden that was positive in his mind. And then she also helped them clean a bunch of necromancers out of Fort Snowhawk as well. And he looked at that as, all right, she's a stand-up person. Seems like she can be trusted. She can pull her weight. She's competent. She's all these things. And so off to visit Harkon. He refuses the gift. And then after that, of course, when you get booted out, the closest city is Solitude. So they head to Solitude. And they give Meridia back her beacon along the way and clear that place out.
Oh, that's a good one. That can be kind of tough, I always thought.
Yeah, it was a little bit tough.
The shades are, I don't know. I always found those. The is that what they're called? The shades.
I think they're shades.
Yeah, I always found those to be pretty difficult.
They can be difficult. The boss battle in that one was particularly difficult. It took me a couple of different tries, a couple different strategies to get through the boss battle. As long as I was hitting the shades in small groups of like 2 or 3, I was fine. I'm playing at legendary, but he's pretty powerful. I mean, with that sword and all the levels that I've sunk into two-handed. I mean, look at, I'm investing all of my points in only 4 different perk trees. So two-handed he's way up there in two-handed. I mean, he's like level 65 in two-handed, and he's got a lot of perks. So he mops him up with that sword. But because I haven't invested that much in light armor, he's always on the offensive. He's extremely offensive because he can't sit back and take shots. So I tried a couple of different strategies there. It was finally a couple of different magic resistance potions that got me through it. But yeah, that was tough.
How about the spread of your 3 health, magicka, stamina?
Okay, so the way that I'm doing that is I'm doing 1/3 magicka, 2/3 health, nothing in stamina.
Okay.
Yep, I'm leaving off the stamina right now. I think eventually I will invest in stamina. The interesting thing is that when you're using combat overhaul like Wildcat, it does funky stuff to the way that your stamina burns. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
You get extra damage for certain combat situations and for good timing, but it drains more stamina.
Oh, all right.
With a single attack at times.
Seems
So,
fair.
yeah, I mean, I haven't invested a lot there, but I can see him doing it in the future. Part of the thing, too, is because I'm using a full suite of Anai Scion mods, I've got a racial ability that lets me basically sprint constantly without losing stamina.
Wow.
So as soon as I go into combat, I start losing stamina.
Right.
But as long as I'm just sprinting across Skyrim and no one's messing with me, I can do that all day long.
Wow.
Which is really cool. I like that a lot. Now it's, not as effective when you've got Goldir huffing puffing behind me trying to keep up.
Well, I was going to say,
But-
you're kind of going to have undead followers. They're the only ones that'll be able to.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Serana can keep up because she doesn't probably get all tired either.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess not. I guess not.
I don't know.
But yeah, so I mean, it went really well. So it's kind of funky because he's always got 2 swords on his back. It seems like he's always got his own sword plus a sword that he's hanging on to for someone else.
Oh,
First it was Destiny,
That's right.
and he gave that to Goldir. Well, then he found Bowler's Oath Blade, and then he found this other one called Malgrim.
Oh, good Lord.
Okay, and now he's got Dawnbreaker.
You just like sword magnet.
Yeah, I know. And he's got all ththese swords he can't use because they're all one-handers, right?
Oh, are they?
Yeah, they're all
What
one-handers.
Yeah.
I thought about the idea of getting a mod that would make a 2-handed Dawnbreaker,
Right.
but I just don't like the sword enough to do that. I'm just never been a huge fan of Dawnbreaker.
Yeah, it's a little underwhelming.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't like the way it looks. But I do like the way that it looks sitting on his shoulder behind the other sword.
Sure.
And he's got this kind of glowing golden thing over his shoulder all the time,
Right.
which is kind of cool.
Cool.
So that's kind of the direction he's going. But when I left off, they were in Solitude and they were gearing up and getting ready for the next part of the show.
Cool. All right.
So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. So that got me up to level 19. And so I'm halfway between level 19 and 20. So I've got a ways to go. Regardless of what we end up setting for the next level cap, I'm going to have a ways to go to get caught up. Like I kind of got to get serious.
Well, yeah, we can talk about
Yeah.
all that good stuff, I think, later on. But I think we're starting to get to the point where levels are a little harder to come by. So
Yeah, they absolutely are.
But all right, cool. Well, I never really went over my circles, so I can do that real quick.
Yeah, let's do that since you did it.
It's pretty straightforward as far as I go into reams and reams here. So let's start with personal. So basically, Van's personal conflict is, the fact he's convinced himself that, family really doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
That his parents don't mean anything to him, and that he's better off without it. So if you know his backstory a little bit, he basically grew up in a broken home. So his mother and father, he's convinced himself that they weren't around for him. It doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
So that's kind of his internal demon, is just this sense of this broken sense of family. So he's whether he realizes it or not, that's always going to be pulling on him.
Okay.
From an interpersonal standpoint, it's kind of some of that personal crossed over to the interpersonal, and that is he doesn't allow himself to get close to people.
Okay.
So this is kind of that, get involved with the gang kind of mentality.
Yeah.
So that's my family, but you can't trust them.
Yeah.
So he doesn't let anyone get close to him. He sees people either as convenience, opportunity, or a threat. That's really where everyone fits into.
Okay.
So they're either allies, so they're convenient.
Right.
You know, they serve a purpose. If he doesn't know you, then, you know, what is it that you want from me? Because there's got to be some more. There's deeper meaning to everything.
Yeah.
You know, you're trying to get something out of me.
He can't conceive of an idea of someone being altruistic. Or,
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Makes
and then
sense.
there's the flat out threats that are obvious. But,
Yeah.
So he's kind of he's got this bubble around him that he just won't let anyone in.
Okay.
And a lot of that comes back to his upbringing of not being able to grow past his broken house.
Ah, okay.
So right now he's put this shell up of protection, and he doesn't see it, but it's there.
It's there. Yeah.
And then we get into the final societal conflict, which I've scribbled this very quickly. And my writing is bad on a good day, so I'm going to try to figure out what I wrote. Let's see. Okay, so what he really wants, and I think getting involved in this little bit of bardiness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What he really wants is just kind of quiet and consistency.
Okay.
So that's kind of what he's really driving for. That's really what he really desires.
Really?
You know, internally.
So he wants a quiet life. He wants like a regular life.
He
or?
wants, he likes. So, and that may change because of this whole music aspect, which I didn't at first think about.
Yeah.
But even still, that's a way different lifestyle than what he's used to, being,
right.
You know, a scallywag.
Makes sense.
But because of his maritime piracy, you know, he's kind of feels like it's almost at this point where people expect him to behave and live a certain way.
Oh. So he's living down to people's expectations in a way, but that's not really what he wants.
Not really.
Mm-hmm.
But he's at a point where this is how people know me, so this is what I've got to do.
Right. Yeah, so. I always think it's really intriguing to think about a character and couch your thoughts on who they are deep down as a person by thinking about what the character says they want. Right. And what they really want, right? And understanding that what they really want is quite often subconscious, you know, that they don't realize that,
right?
You know, they think that they think that they want, you know, they think that they want freedom, right? But in fact, what they really want are a set of rules that they can follow, for example, so that they don't feel threatened all the time.
Right.
Or, you know, something like that. When you think about things in those terms, then it becomes really, really interesting. That's where you start to uncover some of the things that are sometimes harder to get at. Like getting at a character's vulnerability is like one of the more difficult things to do. And I think thinking about things in that way helps me to say, okay, what does this character say that they want? Okay, now that's what they're saying. Now, what do they really want? What's below the surface that they may not realize? You know, I like that thought process. So
yeah, I mean, I guess for Van, what he's saying he wants is riches.
Mm-hmm.
He's a pirate. That's you pillage, you gather all the loot you can.
Makes sense.
But I think what he's starting to evolve into, what he's starting to go towards, is maybe less about riches and more about notoriety.
Okay.
And he's starting to get a taste of it with some of the bard and the music.
Sure.
So that might turn into his outlet.
Oh,
for self-expression, for lack,
Right.
So it's a vehicle,
right,
for him to express himself, to get all his angst out in a more constructive method.
I love what you're building around this juxtaposition of a person who needs people but doesn't trust anyone.
Yeah.
Like he needs people for protection, for validation, for all these different things.
And that's why he says, but it may come down to he just needs people because he needs to be surrounded by people.
Yeah.
Because growing up, he never had it.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh. So he's using that to fill in the gap.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, I have to admit, Raiden is still evolving because there are some things having to do with the deeper inner workings of his personality that I haven't figured out how to express in game yet. And so there'll be some challenges around that. Like I said, some of it may have to be conflict that I manufacture on my own through role play and imagination. But it's always nice to be able to reinforce those things with game rules that help to play it out.
Right.
And it's the game rule part of it that I haven't quite figured out yet because, his weaknesses, his vulnerabilities at that kind of deep personal level are really, really like solitary kinds of things. They're things that don't necessarily lend themselves well to game rules kind of stuff. So I'm going to try to think creatively about that. My goal is by episode 4 to have some things worked out on paper for how that'll work for me. But
cool.
This homework, the circles of character conflict, were for me just and always are a wonderful exercise to start thinking about those things. It may take me some time to flesh it out. It depends on how complicated the character is, but it's always a great place to start because it starts you thinking about your character in terms of how they relate to others, which quite often is the most effective way to get at who they are as a person, with all that stuff. Well, this was pretty productive, despite the fact that we had some trouble getting to it this time around. Very good. We got our work cut out for us for next time around.
That we do, or at least I know I do.
Yeah, but that's okay. We'll get it done.
Oh yeah.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, up next is our community craft segment. But before we do that, we would like to present you with a word from our sponsors. Inspired by the long tradition of Nord brewing, Draugr Lager brings to you the authentic wallop of days gone by. Draugr Lager is crafted for real warriors and is not intended for gormless, honey-drinking arsemongers. Bring back the bold, musty flavors of the Merethic era with any of our line of ancient Nordic lagers. Made with only the finest and really super extremely old ingredients, Draugr Lager will satisfy even the dustiest of palates. Draugr Lager, the great taste of the undead, with no bitter afterlife. Welcome back, everybody. It is time for our Community Craft segment, where we are going to talk about questions, updates you have sent us in the Unbound email form over the last 2 weeks. So we've got a pretty good collection here. Let's look about 7 or 8 items that we're going to cover. All right. And we'll see how far that takes us. If we find that we have time left over, then there are some other things in here we can update, give updates on or talk about here from this list that aren't specifically phrased as questions perhaps, or we can take a couple items from chat. We'll see what kind of time we've got left over. We're a little bit ahead of schedule tonight, which is okay.
That's all right.
That is just fine. All right, how's everybody doing? You have a good break? Yeah? Did you get yourself an ice-cold Draugr Lager? We'd like to just say a big thank you to our sponsors over there at Lost Barrow Brewing Company for all of their support. We could not do this podcast without their support. Isn't that right, Joe?
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I mean,
No, there's no way.
Seriously.
Just,
Yeah,
with all the backing and the products and
I know, right?
everything.
Yeah, as you can probably tell by our super, super nice folding table, it would be literally impossible for us to do this without some kind of corporate support. And the folks over there at Draugr have been really good to us, so we do appreciate that. We've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Just had
8
this
items.
mental image of Rusty's medicated bumper ointment.
Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing. All right, so
All right.
you wanna kick us off? I kind of got these highlighted there, Joe.
Yeah.
If you want to kick us off,
I sure can. By the way, when I open this here can got a little splashage on it. Beer and mixing board. That's not a problem, is it?
Oh no. Beer and electronics go together.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, like water and lightning.
yeah,
They go together.
You can't. Yeah, just amplifies.
It amplifies the goodness, Joe.
That's right. Okay. Enough of these shenanigans.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, our first question comes from... I don't have the headers on here. We do a player name? Yes. Randolph Marcus with Nazoo.
All right.
With Unbound, I always have issues explaining how my character got to where they appeared, having no other map, markers, or explanation. Could claim memory loss or teleportation by the gods for some purpose, but I value your input on creating a backstory or thought process on appearing where Unbound puts you. That is a good question.
That is a fantastic question. We actually talked about that quite a bit in episode 2, which Joe is in the process of editing even now. Well, not this moment, but
Well, not now.
not
but
now, but
in general sense of
yeah. And that was one of the things we wrestled with a little bit, where we were kind of talking about how did we kick off our stories, which plays right into this question, how did we start?
right.
I think there are definitely some locations that are easier to figure than others.
Right.
When you started, Joe, were you on the coast?
I was near the coast, the northern coast, in between, kind of in between Dawnstar and I believe it's Morthal.
Okay.
There are a couple different faction camps up there. I think there's an Imperial camp somewhere up there. Then I landed in the Stormcloak camp.
Okay.
And for me, I just kind of looked around. Well, I originally had the idea after creating the character and seeing his look of having that kind of swashbuckler seafarer kind of background or backstory.
Right. Makes sense.
So when I had done that, I started looking around all the different ships.
Right.
And I came across the Brine Hammer, which was a ruined ship. It's a wreck.
Right.
And there's really not a lot of story behind it because I didn't want something to be like part of a quest.
Sure.
So, and that just happened to be not far from where I ended up with that Stormcloak.
Yeah.
So
you could use it.
So I was able to use the Brine Hammer as part of my backstory, and that it had crashed onto shore trying to avoid an Imperial warship.
Right.
So then, in the process, all the crew was killed or drowned, and he happened to be the lucky one to make it to shore and, beat feet to the nearest smoke on the horizon, which was this Stormcloak camp. So that's how I tied those two together. So I kind of had an idea in the backstory. I looked around for something that might be fitting of it, happened to find something, and it happened to be in the location that I could use it. So
yeah, perfect.
That's how I ended up And then now, of course, I was starting out as an Imperial in full garb in a Stormcloak, so then I had to kind of come up with this concept or this idea that he just more or less bullshitted his way out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's kind of a fast talker, smooth talker, so convinced him he was a spy, and then as soon as he could see that they weren't going to try to stop him or hold him, he quick got out of camp before they realized he actually wasn't a spy. Yeah,
you start somewhere and then kind of roll forward.
Right.
I guess the best practical bit of advice I could give you would be, take a moment and look all around yourself. Take in everything that's in the vicinity, right? And what I would try to do is I would try to avoid at all costs the scenario where you have amnesia. I would try, I think, because, first of all, the problem with amnesia and teleportation is it gets you into the game. You just start moving forward, but it absolves you of any responsibility having to do with creating story in your head.
Well,
and you know what I'm saying?
That, and it doesn't really help you in the short or the long run.
No,
just because it gives you nothing to work with.
And if you're going to go the amnesia route, then play the amnesia to the damn hilt. Like, literally say that he just does not have the capacity for short-term memory anymore. Right? And then use that throughout the entire playthrough. Don't make it of, suddenly I'm here and now I can remember everything going forward. I just can't remember anything from here back.
Right.
If you're going to do it to the hilt. But what I like is take that spot you're in, do a 360, walk around that area a little bit, right? Take in everything that's there and then start to piece things together, because it may be a bit more difficult. It may be a bit of a stretch at the start, but all the things that you're going to be thinking about while you do that will all play into deeper aspects of who your character is going forward. So if you can look at an area in a radius of, say, 100 yards around a character and come up with a concept or a story based on that, you're in great shape. And it can be really, really obscure things. So, keep an open mind and just look around.
Yeah. I think the best way to tackle an amnesia route is to have some kind of story already in your head on how he got to that state. I think I'm thinking of your character Circle, Stu, is a good example of that, as a character who started out the game without knowing why, but you had somewhat of an idea on what he was before that, and then kind of built upon it as you went through and picked off little pieces here and there as the game gave them to you.
Yep.
So, but otherwise, I don't know. Personally, I would find that a difficult way to start, just because what next? I mean, it just gives me no direction.
Yeah.
So pick up pieces around you. As far as Unbound goes, if it's completely random, then what do you have on you? Mm-hmm. And what would that represent? Whether it's clothing or items or whatever. Where did you get them? Why?
Yeah, I mean, there's bits of story all around. It's in your inventory. It's in the landscape around you.
Tie that into where you ended up, and maybe who's passing by that you happen to talk to, such as Caravan of Khajiit.
Such as that. Yeah, I got lucky in that I was in a spot where I had, hunters on one side who happened to be skinning a mammoth, and I had a cart with a dead Khajiit busted all to bits on the other side of the road, and then I had a Khajiit caravan walking down the road at the same time.
Right.
And to me, all the pieces kind of fell into place. He's traveling with the caravan. The caravan is attacked by the mammoth. The mammoth is killed with the hunter's help. The Khajiits allow the hunters to keep the mammoth as a way of saying thank you, and they go on their way down a cart and with one dead person, Right. And so to me, that was like the basic scenario. And then I could start thinking about, okay, now how does Raiden fit into that? What was his situation, or how was he involved?
Right.
So that's how it fell together for me. But that's the advice I would give. It can be a challenge, but not insurmountable.
Right.
And the stuff that you'll gain from it will be priceless when you get a few levels down the road. So
here's one that I hadn't really fleshed out at all, and just thinking of actually on the fly here right now. So I can't remember the name of the town. It's up by the Periite Temple. It's a really small mining town.
That's Karthwasten.
Karthwasten.
Mm-hmm.
So I had just a throwaway character I was messing around with when we started this endeavor that had nothing. I mean, he had like fine clothes, no money, no weapons. I mean, nothing. So what's he doing in Karthwasten with nothing?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe he ran away because he was being drug off to the temple or the Periite thing. So
it could be.
He booted feet to get away from that.
Yeah.
You know, he was captured and drugged there because for some kind of weird witch ritual. So.
So he escaped from it and took off.
I mean, there's an option.
Sure. Why not?
And I mean, that particular scenario could work no matter what he was wearing.
Or abducted by a child and raised by wolves in the Reach, and then finally makes it to the nearest town.
I suppose you could take that route.
Sure.
But yeah, it's kind of really looking at what's around you. Where did you end up? And what's there that you can use?
Yep.
Some of the bigger cities are going to be easier.
Yeah,
like
true.
Markarth, for example. There's more there, but
yeah, true.
I think some of the smaller little places like Karthwasten or even Shorestone.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes
can be more interesting but more difficult.
This game will drop you in the wilderness, but I haven't seen too many occasions where it drops you in a spot where there's nobody else around.
Right.
Like you were dropped in the wilderness, but you were in a camp, right? I was dropped in the wilderness too, but I was in a hunter's camp, right? There's usually something there to work with.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, but that's for me. That's a huge part of what I enjoy about this game is allowing the game to present myself and making a story from it.
Right.
Not everybody's as into that as maybe I am.
Could be as easy as you happen to pick up a book that was nearby that had something interesting written in it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could just be the smallest little thing.
It could be.
Just let it try to spark and marinate.
Mm-hmm. Here's one for you. You're out with your friends, and you got so pissed drunk that they had to load you in the back of the cart to take you back home again, and you're out in the middle of the wilderness, and your friends didn't realize it, but you just rolled off the back of the cart, and now you find yourself like out in the middle of nowhere with no one around, not sure where you are, half drunk.
There you go. Well,
that's how you got there.
That actually could be kind of funny because
at that point you can say that you're from anywhere, right? And now you're stuck.
You could, but yeah, now you got to get back somehow.
Yeah,
and it sure would add a little extra interest to the Sam quest line.
Yeah,
not again.
Exactly. So yeah, maybe your character's just got a terrible drinking problem and there's nothing to be done.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Could be that.
Should we move on to the next one?
Sure.
I think we hit that one pretty hard. All right.
Solid line drive.
Yeah. All right. This is for... Oh, it's this Karn 114.
He's kind of needy.
I know. Whatever. All right. Okay. My arms aren't long enough. My light's not good enough here either. My concern is that my circles are very much not concentric. They've become a tangled web of rings which overlap and interlink with each other in pretty complicated ways. Would it be prudent to try to simplify these conflict categories, or do you think complicated interlinked conflicts can breed an interesting story? Am I getting too big for my britches with this tangled web? I can't speak for your britches, but I don't think there's anything wrong with complication, provided you don't complicate things so much that it detracts from your fun.
Right.
The circles of character conflict are really meant to be nothing more than a model that you can use as a starting point. I think the understanding with those is that you're going to start there, but things are going to get more challenging as you go. As your character I mean, let's face it, when you start the game, your character does not have a lot of interrelationships with people. And as you get further into the game, you get experience in more cities, you gain followers, you gain, a spouse if you want, friends and stuff like that. All down the line, things are obviously going to get more complicated. And so I think it's realistic to say that a person's relationship with the world around them is a complicated web of, interlinked relationships. So complication in and of itself is not a bad thing. And I think that in the same way that we've had trouble in the past with other models, where we've talked about this idea, for example, of the psychological profile, right? And talking about a character's loyalty. Well, if you're rating loyalty, on a scale of, none, low, some, high, and total, who are you talking about that they're loyal to? Is it that they're totally loyal to their friends, but not loyal? What it means is you end up making different flavors of the model for different situations. And I think that the circles of character conflict, while they're not specifically about alignment or psychological profile on the surface, they get to that at a deeper level, but they do it in a way that's a much looser model that's much easier to manage. It doesn't have these dead ends that you're going to hit, or these cases where you absolutely have to make multiple versions of the model to apply to different things. But you can do that if you want to. So when you talk about, I think especially at the interpersonal part of it, it's quite possible that your character could have a different circle of conflict type of profile with a particular family member than other family members, for example. Right? It's supposed to be kind of a generalization, and then you expand the idea from there. So start simply and work your way out, understanding, yes, it is going to get more complicated, but if you have to make multiple circles in order to more closely define relationships with different kinds of people at different levels, then certainly, by all means, go ahead and do that. Just don't do it to a point. Do it as long as you enjoy doing it. If you find yourself not enjoying it anymore, then don't.
If it enriches what you're doing, then have at. And to me, the circles will naturally kind of overlap and bleed into one another. I mean, there's going to be some gray area between them. At least that's kind of what I've found. Mm-hmm. At the core, there's individual pieces to them, but I think as you kind of look at it as a whole, there's overlap. I mean, right. In my own that I went over for Van, I mean, his personal bled into his interpersonal just kind of naturally.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I would echo you, Stu, in that as long as it's as long as you're enjoying the game and it's enhancing your experience, then do it all day long.
Yeah. In the user experience discipline, we have, this term user-centered design, where your design starts with a user and works outwards, which is a different model than they used to use, which is build the systems first and then adapt it to the user. This is kind of the same thing in that this model is designed with the most important ring being the ring at the center, which is supposed to be kind of representative of dropping that pebble in the water, because all those relationships that spread outward from the center are all based on what's going on at the center, right? If you've got a character that's rife with conflict and all this kind of interpersonal stuff going on at the center, that is obviously going to have a huge impact on how they relate to the people around them and how they relate to the wider world. So the idea is really the model is supposed to start at the center and work outward.
Yeah, I kind of like the ripple analogy. That's actually very good.
That's exactly how it's supposed to work. And logically speaking, if you're thinking about your character and you say, okay, I've defined this character very well at the center, and I know that this character has a huge personal problem around confidence, and they have their weakness is their confidence, and they have this imposter syndrome, right? Where they don't think they're good enough. Well, as soon as you get into that middle ring and you start thinking about their relationships in that context, now you can start to picture how other people will feel about this person because of reactions they're having to how this person is, right? So if this is a person who has imposter syndrome, they could come off as not having any confidence, or they could be the exact opposite. They could come off as somebody who's kind of a compulsive liar because they're constantly telling lies about what their capacity is. They're overemphasizing their ability to handle a situation because they're trying to compensate for this feeling they have of not being capable. Right. And so you can start to see how those would spread out, right? Now, this person has family and friends who believe they're a compulsive liar. Well, how does that affect everything, right? Now they're being thrown in jail and accused of crimes they didn't commit because there's this huge cry wolf syndrome going on in town, right? And you can kind of see how it ripples out from the center. You don't have to build it that way, but I find it way easier. So anyway. It's probably not helpful, but that's how I think about it, you know.
So, yeah, I mean, with a lot of things, like a lot of things, simpler can often be, you know, less is more kind of deal, but
yeah,
it's really.
But
you
people
don't have to oversimplify it either, because then you kind of lose the effect.
People are infinitely complicated.
And then some.
You know, no matter who you are, how good you think you are, everyone has the capacity for doing wrong, for rationalizing, for doing all of these things, right? And sometimes, and why that stuff is important to define is because in a game where frequently what we're trying to do is figure out creative ways to tie different quests together, when you're able to dig into your character's personality at that level and say, I know my character so well that I know that they're a compulsive liar, but they go around rationalizing the fact that they're not, you know, these kinds of things. Now you can have a scenario where someone comes up to them out of the blue and says something to them like, oh, why don't you, you know, we need to fix this tree. Why don't you go get Nettlebane? By the way, it's at this place called Orphan Rock, which is a Hagraven nest. You may have one character that would say no to that, but you may have a character, for example, that's suffering with this imposter syndrome stuff who overcompensates and said, hell yes, I can do that. Absolutely, I can do that. And now they've accepted the mission and they're terrified, right? You know, stuff like that. So there's about 1 million reasons you could take a quest. And the reason doesn't always have to be that your character identifies with a huge cause. It could be that they just are trying to convince the world that they're capable. And that in and of itself can be a huge reason for taking on some of these ridiculously difficult quests for the average person to conceive of doing. You know, your average person on the street in Whiterun, if you told them to go take on some Hagravens, they'd say, fuck no. Right?
You want what?
The idea is that in this game, your character is supposed to be the exception to the rule.
True enough.
And sometimes Skyrim doesn't do a really great job of making us feel like just anyone off the street wouldn't go fight a vampire. But they're not supposed to, you know? So Isolde is not supposed to go fighting vampires. She's supposed to be an average citizen who's there so we can measure our capacity against hers and say, yes, I guess I am the hero after all.
Right. And there are some who would, like Adrian.
Yeah.
That makes sense. She would. She seems like, you know.
Yeah, she'll tangle with him.
Yeah.
She's right there at the gate, too, and she's always getting picked on. I feel bad for her.
I know.
Why in God's green earth they didn't equip her with armor, I will never understand. I suppose you can't work in armor, but for God's sake, she makes the stuff. So, I don't know. Anyway, moving on.
All right. This is from Randolph again.
Woohoo!
2 things. First, is it possible for you to keep track of in-game time? In-game, how many days have passed from levels 1 to 11 in my case. Mm-hmm. Mine being actually me. He calls me out specifically because I was 1 through 11 at the time.
Okay.
So I always find it interesting. Do you level as you go, or do you need to rest and then level? Perhaps a bit of explanation on leveling, more or less, is kind of what we're getting at.
Sure.
And then secondly, as a discussion topic, what happens when your character dies? Random dice roll event, build story on perhaps how death occurred, or set it up as a dream, et cetera, et cetera. So, leveling and death.
Okay.
Both are moving on in their own certain way.
Right. Exactly. You want to field this one first, Joe? And I'll
probably not, but I'll
follow
try.
on.
I will try. In-game time. That is actually a kind of a tricky one, especially if you end up getting yourself stuck in a dungeon for a while. Which kind of makes sense that you would lose track of time, since there's really no natural occurrence to help you out.
Yeah.
Other than being tired, which you would have to manufacture, unless you have like I Need or something like that rolling.
Right.
I guess for me, I don't have a specific set of rules, but I like the idea, and I might have to consider that a little bit more carefully as far as when to level up. And I do kind of restrict myself on what I'm going to level when I do, based on what I'm kind of doing at the time. So, you know, if I'm using a lot of archery, or I'm using, you know, I want to have myself perceived as, you know, someone that's very well spoken, then I'll focus, you know, archery or speech, that kind of thing. And because it wouldn't make sense to do like block if I haven't done any of that. So I do kind of gauge what I spend my points on based on kind of what my background is supposed to be and what I've been doing lately. As far as when, I don't have a set time, but I do like the idea of it. I know there are some people who will, you know, they'll do a quick level in the middle of a battle because their health
for survivability
down to nothing. I have not done that. I refrain from doing that. Just one, I don't even think about it because my mind is too occupied with trying to run away and not get hung up on the rocks. But for me, I think it's kind of it's a weird concept. I don't even like trying to eat food for help during a battle, but sometimes, you know what, you just have to do it. Yeah. Because all I have is that freaking venison steak, and I'm all out of potions. So damn it, I'm gonna eat that steak.
Raw or not.
Raw or not. No. So I don't have I don't have a specific leveling concept, but I do have a really loose perk selection.
Okay. Well, related to that, you know, one of the things that I struggle with sometimes is you've got all these mods for immersion, but sometimes by using immersion mods, you end up sacrificing other parts of your immersion. And when I think about that specifically, I think of I Need. But there are other examples, and I think Hunterborn can be an example of this.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
Right? Where I love a lot of the things that I Need brings into the game, just in terms of realism and kind of giving you an opportunity to think about stuff like other food items and water and the timeliness of rest and food and water and all of these things.
Yeah, it actually gives a purpose for those.
It does, which I think is extremely valuable.
Right.
But what I hate about I Need is I hate all the incessant sound effects. I hate all the incessant messages. So when I use I Need, I turn those things off. So I don't want to see any messages. I don't want to hear my character's stomach growling. I don't want any of that. I want to manage all of that on my own. You know, I think even a year or two ago when I was playing this game, I would have found more value in that. But now, you know, more than 6 years later and a much more seasoned player, I like to manage all that stuff on my own, including time. So I trust myself as a player to say, it's time to sleep now.
Right.
It's time to eat now. But I hate those messages.
I'm going to just break away to something I just caught out of the corner of my eye, which is actually a really good point in that I personally hadn't considered much insofar as leveling up during battle.
Mm-hmm.
If you could be kind of that battle savvy, you're learning on the fly.
Sure.
And you could absolutely justify leveling up during a battle.
Yeah, I think you could.
Based on the character type, if you're big brazen type of warrior, or the mage who is constantly learning and
right,
looking and interpreting. So
yeah.
I mean, I don't do it, but it's not to say that it's not a good idea. And depending on the character, it certainly makes sense.
My philosophy on leveling has generally been, when I get a level, I will take the attribute bonus right away. So I'll go ahead and I'll go into the level menu and I'll take health, magic, or stamina, but I'll bank the perk point.
Oh, yeah, I've done that on occasion too.
Yeah, and so a lot of times I'll bank the perk points and I'll spend 3 at once, or something like that, because personally, there's one of two things going on. Either one of them is I'm still trying to figure out what the right thing is for me to pick based on the direction the role play is going. And sometimes the other is it makes sense for me to spend that particular perk when I'm in the presence of the person I think I can learn it from if they're not a trainer, or when I'm in a situation that I think makes the most sense, or stuff like that. I personally, I kind of like banking perks until I have 3 of them, because a lot of times when you're spending perk points one at a time, at least for me, I find myself not being as smart about the things that I'm picking up, because I may end up picking up a perk that is shiny and new in the long term, but isn't going to help me in the long term, or in the short term, but not going to help me in the long term, when what I actually need is that long-term perk. And the best way for me to get it is to pile up a bunch of perks, purchase it all at one time when I do it in more of a disciplined fashion, and get myself up into that level of the restoration tree that would be so daunting to get to if you were just spending a perk at a time.
Right.
So a lot of times I try to forget about the perks, just bank them, let them pile up a little bit, and do that. I don't usually do things like simulating rest before that, or meditation or things like that, but I will sometimes buy those perks in particular situations that I think are fitting for the particular perk I'm buying, to kind of simulate that I'm learning stuff.
Right.
I do like the idea, just to add on to what you're saying, of making the justification for a in-combat level. Like if you were going to level in combat and take a perk, and you decided in the middle of combat you were going to take a speech perk, I would have a problem with that.
Unless it's directly related to your theme and you're the Dragonborn.
Exactly. Like, wow, this is some heavy two-handed combat and all this stuff. It's a big.
I'm going to take bribery.
Battle. Yeah. Let me grab some. Let me grab myself some bribery or some pickpocket, or like. But if it directly relates to what the character's doing, then I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
So I do that all the time.
I think one of the last perks I saved, and then I think I ended up going a little slightly different direction. But I was gonna spend something in archery, but I wasn't quite at the level I needed to get what I wanted. So I was only a couple levels away, so I decided to save it.
Yep.
And then when I did actually level up again, so I had 2 perks to spend, I actually redirected them to something different. But I hadn't been using archery enough to gain the level I wanted to get, so it made more sense to spend it elsewhere.
That's another really good point too, is especially at low levels, when you find yourself in a situation where you literally need everything. And you're trying to decide between a bunch of perk trees to level up. A lot of times I will base those selections on, what did the character do? What did the character do since the last level? What is it they were focused on? Well, if they were, if it's Raiden and he's out there, hacking away on Draugr, I've got no problem at all in continuing to invest in two-handed, continuing to invest in block and stuff like that. Right. And I've been reserving all of my leveling related to restoration to be with training. So he's going to Danica, he's training.
Oh, right.
That's his schoolwork.
Okay.
And out there in the wide world using his sword, that's his practical education.
Right.
So
the only other reason I would bank points is just, especially at low levels, is when it occurs the most, is because I've gained enough experience that I've gone up actually 2 or 3 levels by the time I go into the trees.
Yep.
I mean, not intentionally. It just happens that I was doing enough stuff that I leveled several times, and I just haven't done it yet.
Right.
I always like doing that. It's like kind of like Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know.
Stamina.
I know.
Oh, another one. Stamina.
Yeah.
Oh, health.
I could do that.
3 points.
Woohoo. Yeah.
It's like winning the lottery.
Yeah, it's fun.
The perk tree lottery.
Yeah, that's right.
So.
All
right.
What's next? We just did that one.
We didn't hit the lies, though.
What's that?
Part 2.
Oh. That was
not the lies, but the dies.
The dies.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I don't normally worry about death. Unless I specifically set out from the beginning to create a character that is going to have some kind of thing going on with death, similar to what we did with Siley, for example.
Right.
I just don't worry about it. I mean, if I get killed during the course of a dungeon crawl, I just go back to my last save point and I try again and I try again and I try again. To me, deaths are mulligans.
Deaths are a lie. Don't judge me, DeMorg.
Mm-hmm. To me, they're mulligans, because there are certain things in the game that I am willing to let derail my role play. In-game death is not one of those things, because I've never been the kind of person who enjoys, like permadeath playthroughs and stuff like that. That's just not my thing.
I mean, there's definitely the challenge in that type of play, but yeah, I'm with you.
I've got, as a role player, my emphasis is on creating a character that fits the concept and the story for who I want the hero to be. And usually that does not involve the person dying and coming back from the dead and, having to like do all this kind of stuff. So frankly, I just ignore all of that.
Well, you'd like to think your character's maybe a little smarter than you are a player.
Oh, always.
So that's the only reason they're dying is because I screwed up, not because they did.
Exactly. Like I said, that boss battle, and the Meridia quest was really a bitch, because it was like 6 shades plus a really powerful wizard in there with a staff in each hand.
Oh Lord.
And
yeah, I've been
I tried a lot of different things, and even with Goldir at my side, I mean, we're 2 pretty good fighters, but just, it forced me to have to do some creative stuff. And the funny thing is I think I died probably 5 times, and I'm like, okay, how am I going to tackle it? And I went and kind of looked through my inventory, and I thought, okay, I'm going to try this scroll. I got this wildfire scroll. So I went in there and I cast it, and I ended up beating the boss.
Nice.
And I'm like, that sucks, because Raiden wouldn't do it. Raiden would not use a fucking scroll. So I went back and did it again. Right. Got killed a couple more times, and I said, okay, he wouldn't use a scroll because up to this point he's been collecting the scrolls and selling them. It's not his bag. What would he use? Potions.
Okay.
So I dosed myself with a resist magic, and then dosed myself with a resist frost and a resist fire, and then ran into the combat just like I would.
Cover all the bases.
Yeah. Yeah, I just ran into the combat like I would, because he had a staff in each hand. One of them was an incendiary flow, and the other one was an ice storm. And he just kept alternating them, right?
Oh, that's rough.
And that way I was able to survive the battle, but do it in a way that fit the character much, much better, because I felt like potions were.
I could totally picture
his okay thing to use.
That character style being, all about take advantage of what you can, as far as potions and anything else. But magic just not being one of them things.
Right on. Bro.
I hear you.
Yeah, that's the stuff.
You're throwing it down, and I'm picking it up.
Joe's picking it up.
I'm always picking up after stew.
That's right, and I'm always throwing it down. I'm always whipping it out.
Yeah.
He's always picking it up.
Oh, yeah.
All right, this moves on to Aura, the Ancient Nord. Roleplay question. All right. After discovering the secrets of transmuting ore, oh God, I can see where this is going. My character is on the verge of being consumed by greed. Any advice on other opportunities for a novice alteration mage with a dark past using Ordinator and Apocalypse spells? I've never done much with alteration, even in vanilla. Alteration is one of my favorite schools because that's where all the practical magic is.
Yeah, a lot of your physical buffs as far as armor and all that.
Yeah, your telekinesis, your armor, your water walking, your stuff, all of it. Yeah, the transmute. Apocalypse spell package has some really cool alteration spells too that allow you to just, make walls materialize between you and your enemies, and all kinds of crazy stuff. As far as kind of a play on the whole greed angle, I'm not sure about that one. I think that a character would see the allure of transmute at lower level, but then at higher level couldn't be bothered, and be like, transmute, that's so novice. By that point, presumably they're already filthy, stinking rich too, right? But what I like about this is that it's the seed of an idea, right? It's the seed of this idea that the character is about wealth and power, right? And at low level, we're finding a way to game the system, right? We're gaming the system by progressively turning iron to silver to gold, and we're going to get rich. And so I could see approaching that as a thief pulling off a con. I could see doing it as a wizard, magely type. But there's a lot of different directions you can take it. As far as anything specifically to focus on the alteration school, I can't speak to that only because my primary use of alteration has been as using some of those utility spells as a thief assassin type.
Yeah, and I think that's where the strength of it lies, is that as a what's the word I'm looking for? Not secondary, but augmentation, to augment other schools and other abilities.
Yeah,
it certainly doesn't hurt a person to have stone skin.
Nope. Doesn't hurt.
And all that good stuff. But,
it helps.
In and of itself, to be just although it seemed to work okay for Tolfdir, I suppose, but...
Yeah, but how?
I don't know.
I mean, the thing is, alteration, I feel like, is a spell tree that's designed to be used in conjunction with something else. So Tolfdir was doing lots of wards, he was doing lots of armor, but he was also casting a lot of flame and fireball stuff. Right.
So, yeah, he was using the alteration to augment or help.
Right.
Help his destruction.
Right.
So I think the iron to gold thing, it's not going to pay off in the long run, but the alteration tree can certainly help you get to more valuable goods.
Think of alteration magic as your character's gateway drug to power.
There you
go. They start out with the gateway drug, and they learn how to transmute metal into gold. And then from there, they gain not only money, but they're also gaining power and prestige, right? Which could lead to other schools of magic that complement alteration. So alteration was something that I used pretty heavily with Shadeling, but I very specifically used certain spells, like the acceleration rune. That is part of the alteration tree with Apocalypse, and
Oh,
God,
okay.
did I love the acceleration rune. I found so many creative uses for that.
Pretty amazing.
But in order to make all this creativity happen, I had to use alteration in conjunction with destruction and illusion primarily.
Yeah,
So
runes and illusion. Yeah.
yes. So I was doing, combinations of, ghost walks, shadow bonds, and acceleration runes and destruction runes, to toss people across the map and stuff like that.
Right.
Which is super, super fun. So,
oh God, you had some good ones there too.
oh man, so much fun.
What was that cannon one?
The cannon, the cannon
That
was
hilarious.
Yeah, the cannon was. I stood.
What were you launching them out of?
Well, what I did is it was Falmer that were coming out of their little Falmer tubes.
That's what it was.
And so I would cast an acceleration rune on the tube, and as soon as they would emerge from the tube, it would shoot them across the map like they were fired out of a cannon.
That was great.
It's freaking awesome. And the other one that I used a lot was Shadow Bond.
Oh, yeah.
In combination with the acceleration rune after jumping off a cliff, where I'm using my momentum. So what I'm doing is I'm standing on a ledge here, and I'm casting acceleration rune on the ledge below me. Then I'm shadow bonding with an enemy, and then I'm jumping off the cliff to land on my own rune. But just as I hit the rune, I let the shadow bond go, essentially switching places with the enemy, dropping them on the acceleration rune, launching them, while I find myself standing in the position the enemy was previously. Now, the more complicated version of that even was then I figured in a ghost walk. So I did the ghost walk, the shadow bond, the jump, the shadow bond, and then the shadow bond turning off triggered the ghost rune, which sucked me back up to the spot I started from. It was like amazing.
Got really messed up with those things.
Oh God, it's so much fun. But that's why Shadling is impossible to do live.
Oh yeah, because that takes a ton of setup.
Oh yeah. I mean, to figure out the Falmer cannon trick, I played through that level probably 12 times. And I'm like, what if I did this? Oh, this is so much fun. What if I did this? And I discovered all of these amazing funky things, like when you're in a Dwemer ruin and you've got all those bridges, all those spiraling bridges, and stuff like that. I mean, that is a really thick piece of stone, but I discovered that you can still impact the people who are standing on top of it by casting runes on the bottom of it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so a lot of times, like on those levels where there was lots of Falmer on these bridges and stuff like that, I would go into a central area and, they wanted me to go across the bridges, but I would do the water walking and I'd drop down below and I'd go along the bottom casting runes underneath them and pow, 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 and they're just going off, right? So much fun to chain together stuff, and don't even get me started about Cyclonic Rift.
Oh, water walking's a great spell.
Oh, yeah.
If you can find the boots and enchant some with it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Shadling had perpetual water walking. I mean, that was just water walking was always on with him.
Yeah, that's part of the character.
Yeah, it's so much fun. So I would say use alteration as a gateway drug, but do not limit yourself, because it's the combination of alteration and other stuff that's really awesome, especially when you combine all this Anai Scion goodness in one package, man. You can really do some cool stuff.
Yeah, so if it's all about greed and power, that can get you there.
Yep. Greed is one thing, right? Like acquisition of wealth, but eventually your character is going to get filthy, stinking rich to the point where you can afford all the best armor and all the best stuff, and what's left to pursue? Power. Right. And where's the power come from? It comes with spell capability and combat capability and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
So be thinking about that as kind of the long-term thing. That's what I'm thinking.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. So what do we got here? Let's see. That was... Okay, that was that one. That was that one, right? Yep.
That was that one.
That was that one.
Yeah, you can tell because of how it is.
Oh, that's what I thought. Just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
So now it's this one.
Yeah.
Because I can tell, because it's not how that one is.
Correct.
So.
Yep. We speak our own language after 35 plus years.
Fucked up bees.
Okay.
All right. How do you guys view the standing stones? Usually from a front direction. Sorry, I'm trying to follow your highlights, and it's just...
Well, it doesn't help that I highlighted everything.
No, that's the problem. You highlighted in weird spots.
Which is not the point of highlighting.
No. In Watcher of the Stones, the writer states that he hasn't gotten a response from any of the stones he's encountered. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out, that one.
Okay.
So let's skip down a bit. Is any given player character one of those special few able to choose any stone? Example, Andromeda generally makes the effects more pronounced.
Right.
What do you draw from in the selection for your characters?
Yeah.
Wow, did I just completely butcher that?
No, I think it gets I think it gets the gist of it. I find this to be a really interesting question because so often we sit here talking about, well, the word walls. You know, what does my character make of the word walls? And what do they think when they walk up to a word wall and suddenly this thing happens and they feel this power?
No one blinks.
But the standing stones, no one blinks. Yeah, I like the idea that in this game we would give the standing stones as much significance and reverence as we would give a word wall. But often it's just like a side thing.
I should add that this was by Zephyr, so.
Zephyr.
So I apologize, Zephyr, for butchering your submission. But
Yes.
Stu gets it.
I get it. I get Joe. So, but that's my first impression.
That's a really good point.
Right?
Because you gain this power.
Yeah.
From the stones, just like you gain Thume
Right.
from the word walls.
Yeah. Well, there are books in game with people talking about how they've spent years studying the standing stones, trying to figure out how they work and what they're for. And suddenly you walk up and a light shoots into space.
I get it.
And you're like, I get it.
I don't know what your problem was.
Okay, so here we go. This is for our last one. You wanna talk about like the basis for a character on a power trip. Just have a whole campaign around the idea that your character, is interested in power and all this kind of stuff. He finds a standing stone, he triggers it and says, I have the secret, and gets a book deal. Because that's what all these researchers are trying to figure out. But so often we walk up to the Guardian Stone and we're like, isn't that cool? Look at now I've got this, we forget that everybody else in Skyrim is not able to do that.
No, that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah. Which is great. It's good because otherwise, if everyone in Whiterun was resurrecting the dead, it'd be a very different game. But this is one of these things where I just had an aha moment when I read this because I looked at it and I'm like, you know what? I put all of this thought into the word walls, and I never thought about the standing stones just because they're out in the fucking open.
Well, yeah, and honestly, I think I run into word walls way more frequently than I do standing stones.
Honestly, yeah, you probably do because you're spending more time, down in those dungeons and fighting
only a
Draugr.
handful of the walls are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's the dragon walls, I guess, that they perch on, but other than that, a lot. I think, I don't know, does it feel like most of them are underground?
The word walls?
Yeah.
Most of them. I feel like most of them are, but not all, of course.
No, not all, but it's like, so I just, it's like these standing stones are so, they're more, I don't know, they're more obscure in mm-hmm. some ways. They're not as prominent as a big word wall. They don't chant at you and take up this huge space. They're just a couple little props sticking out of the ground. Usually with somebody that wants to kill you when you get close to them.
Demorg's got a good comment about, Hadvar didn't bat an eye when you select the Guardian Stone.
Yeah.
That's true, and I think it's kind of a messed up thing in the game because when I think about that situation now, given the context around this question, I like to think about it just in terms of Hadvar didn't see it happen. You know, he's showing you the sights. He's saying, hey, check this out, right? And you look at it and you see something happening that he doesn't see.
Right, because he's either down the way
Yeah.
or behind you or wherever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to go turn that
Yeah, we
light
just
on.
went dark, so.
Yeah, hang on.
Not that I don't like being in the dark with you, Stu, but I feel like I'm in the dark enough. Good God, where does he got to go for this switch? I should probably really be entertaining you with some kind of wise verse or something, but yeah, I just don't have it. Hope everyone is doing well tonight. Tonight's beer selections, besides Draugr Lager, are Hopstar from Fulton, and earlier it was Deer Brand by Shells. So there you go.
Better?
I don't know. I was fine either way, but I think we're more visible, which
You edit that out in post?
may or may not be a boon.
Hopefully, people who are listening to the audio version of this won't hear the lights go out. You don't think so, right? I mean,
No, I'll see what
can
I
you edit
do.
that out?
I'll see what I can do.
Okay, great. They don't hear it go dark. I mean, that'd be crazy.
So,
Did we answer that one? Sort of.
Standing Stone.
I like the standing stone thing. After this discussion, I'm going to view those standing stones a little differently. I think I'm going to give them a bit more reverence than I have in the past.
I don't know. And at the end here, what do you draw from in the selection for your character? So, is there any? I don't know if I'm reading that properly, but
Yep.
What are there any stones that you migrate towards?
Influences your decision. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, traditionally, I seem to have always gone for either the Lady Stone or the Lord Stone. And with Raiden, I went out of my way to try and pick something else. I really wanted to try and figure out how I could use something else and use it as a real focal point for who the character was. So up until Raiden, I had not used any kind of mod for the standing stones. And when we created these characters, I decided, okay, well, let me go out and get a mod, try something different, see what I can do. But I had kind of decided on the ritual stone even before I downloaded Andromeda. And even with the standard vanilla perks, I think it would have been awesome.
Yeah.
The perks that it's got on it now are even better.
Cool.
For his story, which, by the way, I have to also tell you that part of the reason that I'm playing at Legendary, it's not just because he's got a powerful sword, but it's because he basically has a small private army inside his own body at all times. And when he gets attacked, all of these spirits come flying out of his body and start fighting.
Oh.
And that's because of that stone. So, when we got into it during that boss battle, that Meridia battle, it was, it was Raiden and Goldir fighting, but alongside them were 2 or 3 spirits of mages that they had killed in previous battles that popped out as well that were fighting with us. It was like 4-on-6 kind of a battle.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's another reason why playing at Legendary makes sense for him, even even at level 15 or 16. So
I think with Van, I believe he started out under the Atronach stone, I believe.
That's interesting.
So yeah, which was really unusual. I honestly just kind of let it pass because I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
I didn't really give it a lot of thought.
Right.
So 100% recovers magic, but 100% vulnerable to it too. So it's like,
does he still have that stone? or something else? Or?
No, he actually just came across the steed stone.
Oh, okay.
And
so he's a steeder.
That one actually seemed to make a little more sense because it allows him to,
Mm-hmm.
it's either carry or move. But either one of those, I don't remember which one it was.
Carry capacity, I think, is the vanilla.
That's what I thought. And I don't have anything that changes the stone, so I believe you're right. So, I mean, he's like, okay, well, carrying more stuff is good. So, now, how he would have known that unless... Well, I encountered the steed stone and it had a monk up there hanging out.
Right.
He was kind of versed in healing. So, I could probably pass that off as the monk telling him about the stone and what it does.
Yeah.
Or what he thought it might do. So Van would have accepted that gladly.
Another interesting idea would be to treat the standing stones the same way that you treat alchemy ingredients. Like, you don't know what they do until you experience them.
Right.
And, have your character just literally walk up to any standing stone that they see, take on whatever that power is, whether it's practical or not, and then live with the consequences until they encounter another. I mean, that would be an interesting premise for a playthrough as well.
Right.
Or part of one.
I think with Van, I think he would be very skeptical of them and probably would not approach them if it weren't for this monk that was up there with the stone. So, I mean, if he encounters others and this monk is still with him as a follower, he might look at it closer. Otherwise, he'll probably avoid him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what EJ is saying here is exactly correct. It could be interesting to start with a character build in mind and then have a stone that is completely unrelated but adds some weird nuance. And that's actually what I was after with Raiden, where it would being a two-handed light armor, swordsman, it would make a heck of a lot more sense for him to be using something like the Lord Stone or the Lady Stone. But because the focus of my character was on this idea of undead and Ashaba and all that, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if you had like this kind of dark swordsman who was able to animate dead bodies and you just like something crazy?
Yeah.
To me, that sounded like a really interesting fit. And that's the reason I went with it, even though it may not have been the most practical thing in the world. And I can think of other ways where that could be really cool. Other stones where you could make something like that work.
Sure.
So,
all right.
Cool. Got it?
Good.
All right. That brings us to AJ with Barghast there. Barghast has just become Archmage of the College of Winterhold. Even with all he's done for them, he hasn't been able to track down a sign of who he used to be, nor the person responsible for his condition. Where would an orcish necromancer look next for possible leads? I guess that depends on the orcish necromancer.
A little bit.
Barghast seems... I don't know if Barghast is a dark character. Seems like maybe. But if you've got a character like this who strikes me as a, first of all, if you're an orc and also the archmage, I think it says something about who you are. You're probably a pretty aggressive, pretty assertive type of person. Maybe this is an individual who now starts to feel their power as Archmage and says, okay, I'm going to start flexing my muscle, and it's time to start traveling Skyrim with my entourage and confronting orc chieftains to say, what the F? Give me all the history you have, give me all the books you have, let me talk to your elders, and if you don't, I'm going to burn your place down. Like that kind of approach, right?
Very heavy-handed.
It just depends on, the focus of your character, I guess, and their personality traits. But that sounds like a cool thing, and it sure gives you an excuse to travel all over Skyrim, causing trouble and demanding action from people, and acting like the Archmage in a way, which to me sounds kind of appealing. I don't know, but that's my thought on that.
Yeah, take that role and run with it, because I mean, you can become Archmage relatively early in not somewhat easily.
Yeah.
So, kind of turn that on its head and use it to your advantage. Now he's, Archmage, so I'm going to use the full power of the Mages College.
Yeah, like here I am now. Boom, I got power. Suddenly people in Skyrim know who I am. Right? And I've got this title of Archmage, which commands a certain amount of respect. I've got people who work for me who are very powerful. I can start demanding things from people. Mm-hmm. And that takes you from a point where a character is kind of going around with their hat in their hand asking for help to being the person who suddenly is demanding it.
Right.
I love that.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, I like the idea of giving the strongholds a shakedown.
I can see how the role would change his character.
Right on.
Absolutely. I love the idea that, a character acquires power and then not only gets the power, but comes into their power personality-wise. Like, how does being an orc who becomes Archmage so quickly affect your ego?
Oh, yeah.
Your sense of self, and then how does that change you?
Kind of a savant that's...
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, I could totally see it. I think the orc quest for the hammer.
Oh, yeah.
That would also lend into somewhat of an ego.
Yeah. For sure.
I'm Archmage, and I'm also in better standing with Malacath than this.
Yeah.
This Joker.
The possibilities with this, I think, are immense because so many of the orc strongholds have something really interesting to offer. I mean, Largashbur is one of those, right? I mean, they've got access or will have access to a Daedric item. What Archmage wouldn't want that, even if it's a hammer?
Yeah, no kidding.
It's a Daedric artifact, right? And think about the one over by Windhelm. I mean, they've got a effing ebony mine. That's a cash cow, man. There's so many different reasons why, someone with an agenda could walk in there and say, hey, I'm back. I'm an orc. I want to know what the F is going on. And if you don't tell me, you're going to be sorry. That kind of thing. So I like it.
So I don't know how well that answers as far as, to who, where would you go to find out who you were or the person we're responsible for. Now, what is the condition? I guess that's the other part. Who's responsible for what condition? I mean, are you the condition of being an orc? Maybe he was something else, or she. Or...
Yeah, well, that's why my first thought went to the orc strongholds. If you go to a place like the Mage College and you're not getting what you need by studying books, you're not getting the information you seek there, then
take action.
You go to the source, right? Now if the written word is not reliable, now you start going back, maybe going back to the culture, right? And digging through other kinds of history and information, following other threads, right? That kind of thing.
Well,
so
Sturla was able to answer me a little bit here on as far as, it's actually a role play of a non-orc as an orc. So
that's right. That's right.
That's really cool because now, all right, so Archmage isn't getting it done. Now we're going to use the power of the Archmage to go strong hand the orc strongholds. Mm-hmm. Maybe the hammer is just the start of it. Maybe this is a Dromora.
Maybe.
In an orc body.
Right. Who knows? I mean,
on this big Daedric item quest.
We had a discussion about this character. Now I'm recalling the scenario, right? Based on her start, there was some question as to how to play this, and it was a while ago we had this discussion, but the idea was that it was a person who was in the service of some kind of a necromancer as an apprentice and got killed and then got stuck in the body of an orc, but wasn't originally an orc, and all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that they would go to the mage college to seek information, but
but now they got to go back to the orcs and find out their history.
Yeah, maybe that's a piece of it. I don't know.
Maybe they go down the line a little bit darker and start discovering, that they're the result of a dark magic, or so that would maybe lead to necromancy.
I would think about that too in terms of, are there any side quests that you can kind of turn on their heads, right? So, things that could be a nice setup for the plot that rather than treating them how they're presented to you, treating them in some other way. I don't know exactly what I mean by that. But so here's like what I'm thinking, right? You could make the argument that a logical place to go might be the Bard College, because they also have a lot of books, and they may be books that the mages don't have
written in spoken lore.
But this is not a character that I could see traipsing in the door saying, "I wish to be a bard now."
Right.
I don't see that happening.
No.
I see that character going in there and possibly participating in elements of the Bard's College quest line, but for very, very different motivations.
Right. Well, while you're there, Potema quest line might have some.
Oh, Potema could be really good.
Interesting answers.
Sure. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I feel like we're not giving you a real good answer here, but first and foremost, I would say expand the scope of your search using the idea that now I am Archmage and I am very powerful, and let's leverage the power, because this is a golden opportunity. You're like at one of those cool transitional moments in a story where you can leverage that power to take a sidestep into some quests or side quests that maybe this character wouldn't have done otherwise, and you can make it work because of this motivation. So I wouldn't limit yourself, that's for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
And as noted, Hermaeus Mora would be another.
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean,
For sure.
Yeah. Where all knowledge is hoarded. Well, if it isn't the orc
coming for knowledge.
Imagine I have an eyeball on each finger. Okay, is it your turn?
I think so.
It's a freaking whale song. You know what? I just got to say, I hate that depiction of Hermaeus Mora.
Yeah,
I just really do.
I know you don't like it.
Anyway. I like my own better. Anyways.
Well, yeah. All right, this comes from Trilliant. When role-playing a character, sometimes I have the desire to randomly go adventuring or dungeon diving, even if it doesn't make sense for my character to do that. Do you think it hurts the role-play experience to break character sometimes just to play the game and then pick up your character where you left off?
I don't think it hurts anything.
No.
Depending on who you are. I don't do that. Just because I'm just stuck in this particular way I like to play the game. So if a character's not doing it for me, I make an alternate.
Oh, okay. Yep.
I don't go off adventuring just to put in the time, and to do some grinding and all that stuff. If I'm not playing for role play, then I'm not really playing. So if I find myself in a situation where I'm like, oh, what do I do next? I just want to play, and this character's not really getting me where I want to go and all this kind of stuff, then I immediately start questioning whether or not that's the right character for me, and I roll an alternate, and I play an alternate until I want to come back to the other. that's just how I do it. But there's no, obviously, that's
and I suppose
my psychosis.
It kind of depends too on how much deviation we're talking about. Is it just passing a cave and deciding to go into it, or do you find yourself all over the map more often than not? Mm-hmm. I mean, doing a little cave exploration may not necessarily.
Yeah.
You may be able to tie that into your character somehow.
Right.
But if you're constantly chasing squirrels, then like Stu says, you might need to just kind of either use that character as just I'm just gonna just dungeon dive and I'm just gonna go and do stuff.
Yeah,
but not necessarily be a role play character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, there's like role play characters and there's experience characters.
They're talking about tentacles on the chat.
I love tentacles.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about them, but yeah. Whew, man, tentacles are
right on.
Man, hot. hot tentacles. So anyways, yeah, what I was saying is there's role play characters and there's kind of experience characters. For me, there's sort of, I'll tell you what I do, but there's the reason I do it this way too is because most of the time I'm making videos. So what I will do is I'll play a character up to a certain point where I know I've gotten all the footage I need for the next episode or the next 5 episodes, whatever it happens to be. I create a hard save, and then I play the character forward, and I start exploring what's the next step, what's the next logical step. And if I'm not super familiar with the area or it's been a while since I tackled any of the quest lines, I just go ahead and I play ahead doing quick saves, quick save. I'll play 2, 3, 4 hours ahead, enjoy myself, have a great time while I'm exploring the content and refreshing my memory on what's going on, because I'm trying to make sure that when I do the final official playthrough of the material, I've got a very clear idea in my head of what the character is going to do next. That works for me because, as we've spoke about before in the podcast and on my channel, I like exploring the content, and I don't have a problem with spoilers and all that stuff. I'm trying to craft a story.
Right.
So knowing what's coming next is important to me because I want to make the right choices so that I can move my story forward, which is a different experience than someone who's just playing to play would have.
Yeah, it's way different when you're playing to create a visual storyline, a video, than it is just picking up the game on a Saturday afternoon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So ultimately there's no right or wrong way to play this. What's bad is if you find yourself in a situation where you're playing the character in a way that makes you feel like you've done it wrong or feel guilty later. Better to have 2 characters than to find yourself in that situation. My view is always, if the character is fun to play and you're playing the game and just having a great time, then that's the space that you're supposed to be in. So, when I play a character through to what I think is a reasonable point for me, the point where I've explored the character as fully as I feel like I need to and I'm ready to move on, I try not to feel guilty about it or bad about it and say, you know what, it's okay that this character made it to level 25 and that was good enough for me. That was the experience I needed. I shared it with my audience. Now it's okay for me to move on. And I may have 2,000 people later on who are going to be angry with me because I stopped that character. But realistically, I mean, what is it that people are looking for? Are they looking for a nice, tidy end to the story tied up in a bow? Are they waiting for me to reach a certain level? And which level is that? Level 50, right. Level 81? What level's good enough? What I do is I stop playing the character when the character stops being interesting.
Right.
The problem with me, of course, is that ADD, right? I mean, that comes into play, right? And I get to a certain point with a character where I say, this is a fun concept, and I've tested the bejesus out of it. Thank you very much. Now let's move on to the next thing. But unfortunately, what that means is a lot of times I have storylines that, stop at episode 50 or stop at episode 25 or whatever. Sometimes, that's good enough, right? And you do your exploration and you move on and you take something from that concept and you add it to the next one. You take the pieces you like and pile them up. So character number 5 is even more fun to play than character number 3 was.
Right.
So that's kind of my philosophy on it. The problem is I have trouble articulating that philosophy. And I'm not always really good at just, explaining that, okay, this is done now.
Right.
And in some cases I can, but in most cases I'm like, this is a character that I may not play again in the same way that I did previously, but I love the character so much that I'm going to keep them around and I'm going to use them for comic relief or plot points or fun later on or something like that, So anyways.
Well, that's the beauty of it, though. I mean,
yeah,
because you have an arsenal of really interesting characters that you've developed at least enough that they're recognizable and you can pop them in even for a cameo.
Yeah. And I love doing that, especially with you guys out there, because you know who these characters are. And so when you hear that voice, even though Twist's vision is blurry, you hear that voice and you're like, oh shit, I know who that is. This is, and you know who this character is based on previous playthroughs and you have a sense of their personality. And then there's something sort of magical and fun about seeing the interactions between characters who've always been part of separate storylines. And I love that idea. The idea of putting Marl and Robart in the same room to me is like really entertaining and electric, right? So for me, that's part of the fun is mixing them all together.
Yeah, you just have to kind of let your imagination go and you can just hear some of the conversations.
Yeah, exactly.
What the hell are you talking about?
I know. Yeah, you can just, it all plays out. It all just plays out in your head. And my favorite thing is to craft those scenarios where there's crossovers. So super fun.
Yeah.
I mean, so fun.
So fun.
So fun. In triplicate. Is it my turn? Did you read? Are we on the last one now?
We are on the last.
I read Barghast.
Yep, I did that. Yep.
Okay, okay, here we go.
This is actually, I think, timing is going to work out pretty well.
Last one on our list. All right, I have given up on character playthroughs quite often, mainly because I felt I couldn't pull the role play off, and also because I was tired of the playstyle mechanics. What are some of the reasons you've put characters aside? Wow, that's timely.
This is from Packet Loss.
This comes from Packet Loss. Yeah. And I think he just said in comments that was his question coming up. But yeah, I think I've answered it pretty thoroughly. For me, in my case, chalk it up to ADD. For me, it's kind of like I love crafting characters. I love crafting stories. And in my mind, their stories are never over. Even though I may stop making videos, their stories are never over in my mind. And that's why if I create a good character, they hang around. I've created a lot of characters that I didn't think were particularly compelling, and they vanished from my mind. But ever since I've started creating characters that were voiced and have much stronger personalities, I'm like, I love this character. And there's a subset of my audience who really loves this character as well. And so it's worth keeping them around just to have them play a role in stories periodically.
Oh, yeah.
But what I like about this game is the new, the shiny, trying to create something new that I haven't done before and experiment in new ways. And every character is like that. So,
well, and it's a fun challenge to take, the old and try to make it new. Taking the known things you've done a million times and trying something different and making something different out of something you already know, but just giving a slight twist or a little bit different definition.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, just earlier talking about Barghast is one example or one way to do that. You're the Archmage, but now what? Take those quests that you've done before and give them a little different spin so they mean something different. And once you kind of start doing that and you start looking at these things from that slightly different angle, it's a whole new experience.
Yep.
But eventually, you're going to come across, I know I've made characters that just kind of lost interest. Hinto's definitely one of those. I love the concept, but I just could not get into it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of that tribal shaman based loosely on the Native American concept, and I couldn't quite find a piece of it that really grabbed me for some reason. And if I did it again, maybe I would. Maybe I'd have a better idea of what I was looking for.
Right.
So if I were to try to do that same kind of role play or same type of character, I think I would probably approach it differently, and it would probably be a lot more fun.
Yep. I would say the one for me that stands out in that way is Vander. Vander's the one that I had to put on the shelf because I felt like I had kind of exhausted my options with him, and I had exhausted my options a lot sooner than I thought I would. But, his is a unique character in that he started with a gimmick, and the gimmick that I started with him was just this very simple idea of having a very fast character who is able to lay down runes and run his enemies over them.
And be really fast.
Yeah, right? I mean, if you want to use runes in a very active and sort of aggressive way, then you use the AI against itself, right? And they all have this impulse to chase you.
Right.
And so if you're going to create a character who's based on that dynamic, they better, first of all, be goddamn fast. And second of all, they better have plenty of runes, right? But you can see, I mean, very quickly, I exhausted that idea, right? Because not only that, but when I coupled that with Vander's personality,
right,
it was really hard to envision a guy like Vander being interested in anything that was easy to do in this game. I mean, he wasn't obsessed with power.
No.
He wasn't obsessed with magic. He wasn't obsessed with money. He was insofar as it allowed him to just upgrade his gear and make sure he had a place to live and make sure that he could afford to get into the race.
Right.
But the whole big thing with him is he loved to race. He loved to be the fastest guy. And I'm sorry, but there's really no quests in the game that are focused on that as a dynamic. And so when I was confronted with that, I'm like, holy shit. It's like I have to make my own main quest in order to keep the character engaged. I was like, okay, he was a fun idea. He ran his course, but he's destined to be a bit player because I couldn't carry it forward anymore.
But you were able to bring him far enough along, and give him such a unique, quirky personality that he immediately garnered kind of a cult following, and you could throw him in any video you wanted to, just as a sideline character, and people are gonna recognize him, and he's gonna add something.
Sure.
So you're right. He's maybe not as deep for a main character, but he certainly has that side character.
Yeah, he does. And there were a tremendous number of important things that I learned by playing that character. There were things that I learned about spellcasting and runes that I applied to Shadeling and his story. There were things that I learned about playing a character who was diminutive in size but powerful in other ways that I applied to other characters. It was during his playthrough that I came up with a concept that eventually became Marl.
Oh, yeah.
It was his obsession with mundane things like pie and snowberries that played into the ideas we saw in Twist's obsession with goats and goat cheese and flutes and all that stuff. Right? So there were a lot of things that came out of Rune Runner that were of immense value. So, and that was really, I consider that to be one of the more important forays I took into voicing a character as well. So
yeah, that was probably, boy, that might have been one of your first real
I had
serious efforts.
I had voiced Robard prior to that.
Yeah, that's true.
That was my first real significant attempt.
Yeah.
But Vander was the first time that I ever really tried to voice a character live while playing and just, boom, right? Whereas Robard, he was voiced, but he was always voiced in these pre-written vignettes and stuff.
Right.
So,
yeah, well, yeah, and I think the nature of the Vander character lent better to just that on the off the cuff impromptu, and the voice in and of itself was or is more akin to your own voice, just kind of sped up and higher pitched.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's,
I didn't have to reach too far
from that standpoint. It was sustainable.
It was. Yeah, it's not like Ivorstad where I can play for 2 hours and then I'm done for the week.
And cut.
Yeah, exactly. So that brings us to the end of our list of questions for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. But and thank you all for your submissions. Continue to do that, please. We love these questions. I mean, we went over an hour just talking about all these great discussion points, and we had a list of 7 or 8. So keep them coming. And obviously, you can find that stuff at unbound.charactercrusade.com. So make sure you keep submitting them. And that brings us, to our homework section. We need to talk about homework and level caps. Is that right, Joe?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, excellent.
We should probably do that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It is homework time. We're going to talk about homework for the next episode, which will be episode 4. And also, we're going to discuss level caps a little bit. Now, I did not have time to poll anybody over the last couple of weeks to see how we were doing hitting the level caps that we had established last time around, which, as you remember, was minimum 20, maximum 22, drop dead 18. Obviously, Joe and I had a few problems, but
a little trouble on this.
Yeah,
side
we
of the
didn't make it
table.
to the minimum, but that's because we spread ourselves too thin with other stuff.
Right.
And that's just kind of how it went.
And just to reiterate, as I had told Ms. Bryson, we're grading on the discussion part of the class, not necessarily on points. So,
Yeah.
we don't worry. If you think you're not passing the class, if you're part of the discussion,
Yep.
it's all good.
That's right. That's right. This is all an experiment. We're just laying a foundation here, and we're laying it out there so people can get as far through it as they can, as they want to. If you wanted to create a character and you got so attached to that character that you just wanted to play him to level 50 right away, doesn't matter, because I think there's still cool stuff you could get out of this conversation and great questions you could submit at any point throughout. So yeah, don't worry about that. Let's do this. Let's start out by talking about the homework. So this one I'm calling the role play buddy system. I want you to find a person willing to add something to your story. And what I'm talking about here is something very simple. So you'll remember in my example, I went to 57 Strudel and I said that my character has a vision. What is it? Okay. Now, what I would like to say is keep it simple. Keep it simple. Keep whatever it is you're contributing. Keep it to like a sentence or two, right? What we don't want is big dissertations. We don't want people feeling responsible to go out and watch an entire character's history and stuff like that. When I asked Strudel for her help or for her input, I specifically didn't want her to have a whole bunch of background on my character, because what I wanted her to give me, I wanted her to give me something that would throw me for a loop or set me off balance or force me to think differently. That was the objective. The objective was not that she creates something that just seamlessly blended into my story. That's what I'm doing. I want something that's gonna cause me to think about things differently, and it did, because with her suggestion, with that vision that she gave me, I pursued the whole Gildergreen thing, which I would not have done at that moment otherwise. I may have done it later, but as it turned out, it was a wonderful thing because it was a really formative thing for the character, and then it got me exposure to Danica, which could train me in restoration, which is a direction I wanted to go anyway. There were a lot of benefits.
Right.
So what I would say is find someone who's willing to work with you and do this exercise, because I think it's worthwhile.
So really, it's like, what, 1, maybe 2 leading points, and then a response to that.
Yeah.
And actually, it really sounds like the less you know about the character, the better.
I think so.
That way, you're not skewing or tainting your offer, your input.
Yep. And I would say if somebody comes to you and asks you to provide something or be their buddy on this, also as the person who's providing an item or a plot point or whatever you want to call it, don't let them browbeat you either into turning in something that they want to hear, right?
Right.
I mean, you give them what you think is an interesting thing, and they can choose to use it or not. If you present them with something and they're like, oh, that's messed up, I don't want anything to do with that, that's their prerogative. But I think the key here is be creative, and then as the person receiving the piece of information, be open-minded, think about it in abstract ways if you have to, but see what it presents. And, it's possible, and we're not even saying that this needs to be something that you work into your playthrough before the next episode. It could be something that you say, oh, this is a great long-range goal and something that I pursue when I hit level 30.
Right.
Or something like that.
Right.
So that is the idea. Now, this can be a person on Discord. It can be a person at school, at work. It can be a family member. It doesn't have to be somebody who even understands anything about the game.
But it can't be us.
Yeah.
There's more of you than the two of us. So
yeah, it can't be us. It has to be Matt Kelly exclusively.
Well, we better not do that.
No, we better not do that. Matt is really busy. Obviously, that's why he's not here.
He'll get some.
Yeah.
What?
What's all this about?
We better send him a message.
Yeah, don't approach Matt. He's got enough going on right now.
Yeah, challenge each other. Like Stu said, anybody. It doesn't really.
Yep.
We're not documenting this. You don't need to show us your sources.
It's just an idea. It's just an idea.
It's a game. It's an idea. So
yeah, you don't need to
have fun.
Exchange Twitter handles or anything like that. Just help each other out and see what comes of it. What I like about this is I've always liked the idea of allowing someone else to present a perspective on your story that makes you think outside the box, and that's what we're trying to do. And it's not supposed to be homework, even though that's what we're calling it. Homework is drudgery. Come on, we're role-playing in Skyrim. How bad can it be? So in my particular case, Strudel came back to me with 4 different options. She gave me a multiple choice option, which was really amazing. And I picked the one I liked the best out of the 4. So you can certainly do that if that's preferable. So, all right. That is the homework challenge, and we will talk about this in a bit more detail. We'll see maybe some of the results of this. If you've got questions pertaining directly to it, put them in the forum. We'll talk about them next time around.
Yeah. And if you are in the Discord, and if you're not, I strongly suggest hop on there. Yep. But if you are, throw out your questions and concerns there, and if we don't answer them, someone will, because there's a lot of really talented, smart people there. So
right, yeah. So be creative and see where it takes you. That's the whole idea. So let us talk about level caps, Joe.
Level caps.
What the hell are we going to do about level caps?
40, I'm thinking.
You're high. You will never make it, sir.
Not at this rate.
Last time we went 2022, which I don't think would have been an overreach for us if we had known then that we were going to be doing all this stuff.
Other stuff.
So I don't necessarily think that the level caps were wrong. I think for me, I just underestimated the amount of work I had left to do to launch a podcast. So, but obviously we're getting higher level now, so we're going to dial it back significantly, right?
I think we should.
I think we should as well. So that begs the question, what are we going to go for?
What's dialing back?
Right. Well, we gotta take into account that we're at 22 now, hypothetically.
Yep. So yeah, if we
Right.
take the assumption we're starting from the top.
So, what if we do something like, say, 22? Oh boy. How would you feel about, say, 26 to 28?
Yeah, I wouldn't go much more than that.
26 to 28? Is that okay?
Yeah, I think
And
that works.
what would be our drop dead?
14.
How about 24?
I think I could make 14.
24. I mean, depending on your play style, right? Like what Joe is talking about here is he's obviously contending with a little follower bloat at the moment.
A little. I got my followers stealing my experience.
Yeah.
-1.
I think
So what do we say? 26, 28?
26, 28 with a level 24 drop dead is what we're going to go for.
Yeah, let's call that good.
Okay. All right. I think that's doable. All right. So that's what we're going with, ladies and gentlemen. I will post that on Discord. So it's documented. You can look in the Unbound announcements section for that information. If you ever have any questions about what's kind of current with the level caps, go to the announcements section there. Obviously, there's a lot of people on Discord you can ask as well, but we're trying to post stuff in there as much as we possibly can just to make sure that everybody is on board. We're all on the same page, all right?
So I'm going to add just a slight twist here since we'd have a drop dead. And I guess if you creep past the 28 mark, I guess we'll be willing to look the other way.
Yeah.
Just don't tell us about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're out there, if you're out there just going balls to the wall and you really want to play this character, don't let us stop you by any means.
No, if you're having a good time.
The level caps are designed to try to keep us roughly around the same level so that these conversations are a little bit more relevant to everyone at the same time. But that, it is what it is. I mean,
if you find yourself at 30, I guess,
Yeah.
I think we'll still be all right.
Yep. Mm-hmm. All right. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching, listening tonight. That is wonderful. So thank you for listening. And for more information about characters and story, you can go to charactercrusade.com. If you would like to support what we're doing, we always appreciate it, and there are a number of different ways you can do that. You can go to patreon.charactercrusade.com. You can buy something from our store at shop.charactercrusade.com. That is always helpful. And this will be released as a podcast within a week or so. So always getting out there on iTunes and giving us ratings and reviews is always, always helpful. That is great. What else, Joe? We got anything else?
We've got our Twitter feed. We've got
all right, yeah.
Discord.
Hit us up on Twitter. You wanna keep up on what's going on. You can go to @CharacterWonk on Twitter. We got a lot of stuff posted there. You'll find things there from the Panicked Monk, from CouchWarrior TV, and Character Crusade, all kind of bundled together. You can catch us also on Facebook at facebook.charactercrusade.com. See how easy these URLs are?
I'm sensing a theme.
Yeah.
I can't put my finger on it, but
yeah, I know.
Something
it's just
about them is
it's just out of reach.
Similar.
It's just out of reach. And then finally, Discord, baby, Discord. Discord.charactercrusade.com. That's where you want to go. That's where the community is. That's where the action's happening. That's where the cool people go. So go to Discord and check out our server. We got a lot going on there.
Ooh, I think I feel a new URL coming up.
Discord?
No. Well, that one too, but.
Oh, cool.
Cool table.
What?
Character Crusade.
Cool table?
Yeah, because we're all at the cool table, right?
Oh, okay, I see. The grown-up table or the kid table?
The cool table.
The cool table. All right, I got it.
We're neither kids nor grown up.
Yeah, the cool table. That's the table at the far back corner of the wedding reception hall where people can get really drunk.
I was thinking of the cafeteria, but
okay.
I'm going back even a little further.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending tonight, for listening in. We really do appreciate it, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks for episode 4 of Character Crusade Unbound Skyrim Roleplay Workshop. Thank you, and good night.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Bye. We gotta have Matt here. It's just not the same.
It's not the same without Matt. Hey, thanks everybody for attending the live stream tonight. That was wonderful and amazing. And goddamn, were we disciplined tonight. We stuck to script.
We've got the paper, baby.
Yeah, we had to get ourselves organized because editing is too difficult if we don't. So, what does that get us anyway? Like, where are we in the timetable here? So,
what do you mean?
2 weeks from now is going to be April 2nd, right?
Sure.
April 2nd. Yeah, that's just after Easter Sunday. Because Easter is Easter Fools this year. So, yeah, the plan is to see you all again on Monday, April 2nd, same place, same time. So good luck hitting those caps. Make sure to reach out if you've got any additional questions, need some advice, whatever it is on Discord. I'm available. Leave me a message there, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can and help you out in any way that I can. So good luck with your buddy stuff. If you have any questions about that, hit me up, and I'll do what I can.
All right.
Thanks, y'all. Bye. The gentleman bastards are in the building. 2 of 3, anyway.
Well, I was going to say, at least without Matt, we're just the bastards.
Yeah. Vape Nation. Yeah, we've got beer-flavored vape tonight.
We do. We do. Hello, Cleveland.